Welcome. It's the Friday NBA Deeper Dive, a little special 75-minute show because it's a 10-game slate. Joined alongside with me is Adam. Adam, how are you doing this Friday?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to talking about 10 games with you.
Yeah, 10 games. I mean, a lot different than last night's slate. How did last night's slate end up for you? Did you go super overweight to Moses Brown like I did, which kind of didn't work out for me at the end of the day?
Yeah, I did, but so I lost on FanDuel, broke even on DraftKings. Ended up being really frustrated though because I finished 12th in the big DraftKings tournament with the best John Wall lineup, and Wall did not step on the floor in the fourth quarter while teams with Chris Paul and Mikal Bridges passed me. So yeah, could have, and it was like 4 points out of first. So
Oh,
definitely could have been a much better night. But on to tonight.
yeah, it's the close ones always hurt. The close ones
Yeah.
definitely hurt, especially a situation like that where the game is maybe 4 or 5 points closer. You're sitting in a good spot to just take that down by yourself. So, but here we go on to this Friday slate. A ton of games means a ton of potential injury news that could open up. You got some news already earlier in the day, especially in the Golden State side of things. But we'll go ahead and get started. Everyone hit that like and subscribe button for us. And shout out to our sponsor, NHA, No House Advantage. We'll talk about what they do and how they're really different out there and really kind of changing the game in terms of a new style of format to take advantage of. A lot of potential over it headed up there tonight. 10K to first, I believe. Producer Tyler was telling me. So shout out to them. Atlanta taking on Charlotte. And in this game, it's a great game environment. Obviously, on the Atlanta side of things, they remain to be out with DeJounte Murray. Clint Capella is also out.
Yep. Capella and
And
Collins.
Capella and Collins remain out. So it's a Trae Young, and it was the chalky Bogdanovich show the other night. Trae Young comes in at 10K on DK, 9.8 on FanDuel, and $43 on Yahoo. He seems like a strong play just because of the upside, the game environment, the guys who are missing on this team. And I know he's kind of the first game of the night, but he seems like one of the strongest plays of the night. Talk to me about Trae Young.
Yeah, he looks really good. He's been disappointing recently. I don't know if it's injury related. I know he's banged up, or if it's just variance, but not a whole lot you can do with it. He's going to look really good when you take DeJounte Murray and John Collins off the floor. He's also at a very reasonable price tag at 10K in a good spot against Charlotte. So I think getting right back to him here makes sense. The only minor concern, or I guess like in addition to the fact that he hasn't been that great in these few games without Murray, the actual concern I have more so than his production is that he does only have a 31.1% usage rate. He has a 45.4% assist percentage. But since the start of last year, without Murray or John Collins on the floor, obviously Murray wasn't on the team last year, but without Collins on the floor, and then this year also without Murray, overall Young has a 35.6% usage rate, 43% assist percentage. So I do think you see him bounce back. He's still only 10K. He should be relatively popular here. There are several plays around him that also look good. But he just looks like a good option. He's only 9,800 on FanDuel as well. So he's pulling a ton of ownership there. On DraftKings at 10K, he's pulling 27%. So I think he's a good play. You can obviously argue that there are some other really good plays in that price range as well that maybe you're getting a little bit less ownership that we'll touch on, but individually, Young looks very good. And then Onekwo Okongwu as well, 4,700, should step into the starting lineup in place of Clint Capella. He has averaged about 32 minutes per game in his few starts this year. He's about a fantasy point per minute guy as well. So Okongwu is going to look like one of the better values on the slate and is also getting a ton of ownership.
Yeah, Congo definitely is going to look like a strong value point there as well. And it's no Clinkable. I expect him to eat up a lot of his minutes, barring any foul trouble or injury. And he hasn't produced as great offensively as I thought he could in these spot starts he's gotten. But in the Charlotte matchup, I think he could put up a similar Jalen Duren type of stat line, and I'll definitely take that at that price tag. You'd prefer like that double double bonus for sure. I mentioned Duren because Duren played the same Charlotte team last game out, and Okongwu can certainly get that job done at that price tag as well. The rest of the team is, I know they're missing guys, but they're kind of priced appropriately, and they're other favorable options to go to. Jalen Johnson's getting a lot of ownership at that price tag at $4,500. He comes in at $5,100 on FanDuel. I think you can play him certainly at $11 on Yahoo, but he seems kind of overowned at this point. I know he's a solid point per minute guy, but that DraftKings ownership. Oh, I misread it. Sorry. DeAndre Hunter is the guy who's getting the ownership there. He seems overowned at $5,100, while Play 5,400 on FanDuel seems a little steep for me for DeAndre Hunter. How do you feel about this DeAndre Hunter ownership? Because he's getting a significant amount, in my
Yeah, I
opinion.
agree with you that it's a little bit too high. I think he's a perfectly reasonable play. I just think there's a lot of guys that look just like him on this slate. He played 38 minutes last game, which is great. But when you look at the rotations, for one, you only got 19 minutes from Jalen Johnson. So immediately you kind of see where you could potentially lose a few minutes for DeAndre Hunter. Johnson could just play a little bit more. But also, DeAndre Hunter scored 20 actual points in the second quarter. He was 6 of 9 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3. Like, that's just not what you expect from DeAndre Hunter. He's perfectly fine. We have him projected for 26.9 DraftKings points at 5,100. I have him at like 25 and a half. So we're in that same ballpark. It's certainly a good spot, but there's just no shortage of guys that look like DeAndre Hunter on this slate. So if he really is going to pull 23% ownership, I'm perfectly fine just finding other guys that project in the mid 20s in that price range.
Yeah, I'm willing to look elsewhere, and hopefully that ownership stays so I can pivot off of that and find some other guys who have higher upside at potentially even lower salary. Any final thoughts on this Atlanta team? I know Bogdanovich is going to get some ownership again. If I'll wrap up this Atlanta team before we move on to Charlotte.
Yeah, he was the last guy I was going to mention. He's 6K on DraftKings now, so you got $1,000 price bump. But I don't find that overly concerning because the guy was like 65% owned last slate at 5K. He was just wildly underpriced. So when you bump him $1,000, it just gets more in line with his salary. We've seen him continue to play north of 30 minutes. I think a 30-minute projection is very fair, and there's upside for him to play more. He's about a fantasy point per minute guy. He still looks like a good option here. So to me, it's Young, Okongwu, Bogdanovich as the three guys that I really expect to get to from this team. DeAndre Hunter kind of lineup filler for me, and I don't really plan on doing much else.
I guess it kind of does feel weird just to say Bogdan and not say his last name with it just
Yeah,
because of
yeah.
the
I kind of got caught between was I going to say Bogdan or was I going to say Bogdanovich, and it just kind of got stuck in the middle.
Yeah. So no, this Atlanta team certainly has some tournament upside, but keep aware they're getting some ownership because of the game environment matchup, Vegas total, all things put together, and even guys missing. Onto the Charlotte side we go. Hit that like button for us and the subscribe button. But Charlotte got back LaMelo Ball back, and LaMelo Ball looks outstanding tonight. 8K on both DK and FanDuel, $35 on Yahoo. I really like going to LaMelo Ball. He fouled out last game. I thought there would be some sort of minutes limit. They just kind of let him ride until he fouled out, and that game went into overtime. He didn't play much in overtime, I don't think,
He didn't play
because
at
I
all in
think
overtime. He'd already fouled out.
okay, he had already fouled out. So I like taking some chances on him. I do think slowly just riding guys coming back from a lower body injury, kind of ride their minutes go up. I know we currently have him projected for just north of 31 and a half minutes, but I can see that going to up to 32 or 33 potentially and making him a solid play at this 8K price tag. He's by far my favorite Charlotte player. I don't have any interest in anyone else. Kelly Oubre is balling out. He is definitely not this. I don't think so, but he's taking a ton of shots. I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical to go to Kelly O, but LaMelo Ball, I think, is my choice of Charlotte player tonight by a significant amount.
Yeah, LaMelo's the guy that really stands out to me as well at 8K. And one thing that makes me pretty confident in his playing time is we've seen this twice now, unfortunately, because, he has barely played this year, but we saw him come back from a prolonged absence. In his first game back, he ended up playing like 28 minutes, but he was in foul trouble. He was on pace to play like 33, 34 minutes in his first game of the season. Then the next game he played 34, then the next game he played a lot and then sprained his ankle and went right back to not playing. So I think they've just tended to bring LaMelo back when he's ready to play full minutes, and we saw that yesterday at 34. The biggest issue for LaMelo, and going back to last year as well, the guy fouls a lot. It's unusual to have to worry about foul trouble for a guard as often as you do with LaMelo, but it is a real concern. And as a result, since the start of last year, he's averaged like 32 to 33 minutes per game as a starter. In games where he's not in foul trouble, though, you can certainly get 34 plus minutes. So I do think he looks good here. I went ahead and went to 33 minutes. Certainly he can play 34, 35 if he avoids foul trouble. His rebounding numbers in a limited sample this year are also down significantly from last year. I don't buy into it as, he's just going to have half the rebounding rate that he did last year. But I do think it's a little bit concerning. Charlotte is playing a bit bigger. Mason Plumlee's playing more minutes than he did last year. So I think maybe you do see a little bit of a hit in rebounding for LaMelo, at least until they start cutting minutes from Mason Plumlee. So I really like LaMelo here. I do think he's a very good play. There are a lot of alternatives at his price range that are also very good and not going to pull as much ownership. So it's kind of a similar situation to Trae Young on the other side. I think LaMelo is a clear, very good play. I do think within individual tournament lineups, there are some guys that if you need to save ownership at that position, you can go to other than LaMelo, but he does clearly stand out.
Yeah, and I think LaMelo definitely stands out. Any other Charlotte players of interest before we wrap up? I do think Gordon Hayward also returns, which doesn't help. Guys like Kelly Oubre, PJ Washington, other guys who are going to give up some usage to him. I'm not sure what the minutes look like. I know it was a shoulder injury. So keep an eye on that situation if you have any pre-game notes from their coach. But
Yeah, the
any,
the big
yeah,
question
go.
for me is whether Hayward moves into the starting lineup in place of Oubre or not. But I still don't think it changes a ton. Like if I assume Hayward starts, I would expect him to play around 30 minutes. I would still expect Oubre to play around 30 off the bench, and that's not going to get either of those guys into lineups really. If Oubre starts, I would think that means Hayward's playing like mid 20s off the bench and Oubre's playing mid 30s. But at the increased price tag for Oubre, he's basically priced to be playing 37, 38 minutes, and I still think it would be tough to get there. PJ Washington's the only piece other than LaMelo that I do have some interest in. He's the only other guy pulling any ownership at 8%, but I think he's hurt by Hayward coming back just because, one, Hayward's another relatively high usage guy, but also LaMelo coming back as a high usage guy. Cuts into what we'd seen from Washington this year. But he's one guy, and like I said, there's going to be a lot on this slate. If DeAndre Hunter is really going to pull 24% ownership at 5,100 and Washington's going to pull 8% at 5,500, he's one of many guys that you can just play instead of DeAndre Hunter at lower ownership.
Agreed for sure. Can we go to Gordon Hayward at this price tag?
I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna just wait on the situation, what transpires.
Like if I give him 30 minutes, if he starts and I give him 30 minutes, he still just doesn't project well enough for me to get there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna need some more certainty on what the minutes look like before taking some chances on him. But something to monitor leading up to lock. I'm sure live before lock we'll touch on that situation there. Hit the like button for us. On to Sacramento and Detroit we go. The Sacramento team. I believe Coach Mike Brown got fined $25K for decking a referee in the Toronto game before getting tossed. So, but Sacramento's 5.5 point favorites, 237.5 total right now. They are traveling to Detroit, and Sacramento. It's the Sabonis Fox show. As God, are they going to be without? Who was out last game?
Herder's questionable.
Kevin Huerter. Yeah, Kevin Huerter still remains questionable, and we saw Terrence Davis start last game, and he paid off his value. While other guys were close, Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes were kind of closest, but it didn't really matter. Depending on the Huerter situation, it is kind of big news because Malik Monk, I believe, closed the game there. Monk comes in at 5,300 and 5K on FanDuel and DraftKings, but Fox and Sabonis 9,600 and 8,100 in a favorable Detroit spot. I have some interest in Sabonis, definitely at 8,900 on FanDuel, but they seem like good plays, nothing great. Fox is only $27 on Yahoo, which is insane. And he is by far a priority play over there, but I really like Sabonis on FanDuel. And it's kind of like site-specific plays here. Good matchup, certainly have tournament upside, but no one else until we get the Huerter situation ironed out.
Yeah, I think so. I'll touch on the Huerter situation in a minute, but as far as Sabonis and Fox, I think they're good tournament plays. I think that they're both guys where they don't project the best at their price ranges or positions, but if things go right, they go like there's still the potential for them to just be fantastic at these salaries. De'Aaron Fox, 8,100, he's been playing like 32, 33 minutes typically. He played 41 and a half minutes last game. There's no real reason this guy can't play 35, 36 minutes. And so I am somewhat optimistic. Like I'm certainly not expecting 40 from him again, but I'm optimistic maybe he can play a little bit more. He's been a 1.2 to 1.3 DraftKings point per minute guy this year. He's one of several guys, I had referred to when we were talking about LaMelo. He's $100 more than LaMelo, and he's getting 1/3 the ownership. Do I think LaMelo projects better? Yes, but Fox is still going to beat him a pretty high percentage of the time. So I like Fox as one of the guys that you can pivot to in tournaments if, you're just looking at a lineup and it's just like, all right, well, I have a bunch of popular players. I have 8,100 left at a guard spot. Here, I'll just play De'Aaron Fox instead of LaMelo. That's a spot where it's going to make a lot of sense. And it's kind of similar with Sabonis. There's a lot to like at center today. You have both Embiid and Jokic on the slate. You have a Kongwu playing without Capella. You have a pretty strong mid-range with guys like Jared Allen and Miles Turner, both in the same game. So Sabonis is someone where it's difficult to really prioritize, and that's why he's only getting 6% ownership. But we've seen huge playing time from him when he avoids foul trouble, just frequently playing, 36, 37 minutes. Last game he played 40. And this is a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy playing the Detroit Pistons at very little ownership. So Sabonis and Fox, I think, are both great differentiation plays in tournaments. The Herter news is big because if he is out, we got a start last game from Terrence Davis. He played about 25 minutes. He's 3,900. He's averaged well over a DraftKings point per minute this year. He's also shot the lights out. So I do think that production comes down. But even if you call him a fantasy point per minute guy, if he's going to play, 24 to 26 minutes at 3,900, he's going to look pretty good. And it is a good matchup. So he could certainly continue to produce at a high rate as well. And then you mentioned Malik Monk, who closed last game. And I do expect him to close more often than not when Kevin Huerter is out. He ended up playing 32 minutes, so he would look better without Huerter as well. If Huerter is in, it just is a situation where, Huerter, Barnes, Murray, they all sort of look like last guy in type pieces. Barnes or Huerter, who's a little bit more expensive, certainly are other guys just getting no ownership that I think look just like DeAndre Hunter. And Malik Monk would, go back to playing 24 minutes. So if Huerter is in, it kind of just takes away Monk and Davis interest. But Sabonis and Fox are unaffected by Huerter. I think that they're very, very good contrarian plays regardless.
Yeah, definitely well said there. Keep an eye on that Herter situation. On the Detroit side we go. Unless if you had any final Kings thoughts, I think you ironed that out really well. I don't have really much else to add to that.
No, that's all I got.
All right, onto the Pistons we go. It's been the Bojan Bogdanovic show over here. 6-6 on DK, 6,100 on FanDuel. Jalen Duren has been starting, and I was really aggressively over the field on him. Last time out, it was close to working out, but not really type of situation. And I'm going to go right back to him. I know Marvin Bagley missed some time there he left the game with some injury. I think Duren should be playing high 20s minutes as the season progresses, and I just want to ride the wave there. 5,800 on FanDuel seems a bit too steep for me, but I'll take my chances at that price tag on DraftKings at 4,400. Yes, it's center only, 10-game slate. The opportunity cost, there are some good centers on this slate that we can touch on, but I don't mind taking a chance on a guy like Duren. Another guy who I continue to be aggressively in the field on is Jaden Ivey. Ivey comes in at 5,100. 6K on FanDuel. That definitely didn't work out last time, but I'm willing to go right back to him. And it's the reason why it's not working out is because Killian Hayes has turned into an absolute monster in terms of just production, offensive production, and just becoming a really good basketball player as he's getting more time. He is very inconsistent, but it's a Sacramento matchup where the other night, Toronto just cleaned house with how many guys outperformed their salary. And Detroit can certainly do that if Dwayne Casey doesn't fuck around with the rotation too much, but a lot of favorable guys with a lot of tournament upside, just low owned. And that's why that intrigues me to take some chances on this Detroit team. Kind of give me your Detroit guys, players of preference today.
To me, this game is just like fascinating for tournaments. It sucks that it's the first game of the night because obviously anybody you play here, it reduces your flexibility later. But this is a game with a 238 total that doesn't have a single player pulling double-digit ownership on DraftKings. It's just really, really interesting to me. We talked about the Sacramento side. The Detroit side's the same for me. The negative for Detroit is that they are running very non-fantasy friendly rotations right now, where basically every player has a backup that plays actual rotation minutes. So it kind of caps how many minutes you can give to a lot of guys. Like Jalen Duren, starting, I think he's a good value. He's, to me, somebody asked for pivots away from Okongwu. Duren's one of the guys in that price range that you can go to. I don't think they're very similar. Like, I have Okongwu projected for 33 to 34 points. I have Jalen Duren projected for like 24. So I have a really big gap there. But at the same time, Okongwu's pulling 60% ownership. Duren's pulling 1. If you laid me 60 to 1 odds, I'm taking Duren every time. So, it's a spot where, again, Okongwu is going to be the guy you get to more frequently in tournaments, but in an individual lineup, Duren makes some sense, and you certainly can play them together as well. I have Duren in for 26 minutes. I have Bagley for 22, but, you potentially at times could get a little bit more for Duren. I'm with you on Jaden Ivey too. The negative for Ivey, and it goes back to what I was just saying about the rotations, is that he's not playing as many minutes recently. And it's not like it's just blowout based. You can just kind of look at the rotations. Alec Burks and or Corey Joseph, kind of depending on the game, are subbing in for him. You're typically getting like 14 to 18 minutes from Joseph. You're getting like 20 minutes from Burks. And until Corey Joseph goes away, basically, you can't really give Ivey more than 26 to 28 minutes. But if you give him 27 minutes at 5,100 and no ownership, he shows up as a good play in this spot against Sacramento. So he's about a fantasy point per minute guy. He certainly has the upside for more. Brandon Katz actually said something that makes sense in chat, that Jaden Ivey is inefficient, which is true, but that doesn't have anything to do with his ceiling. He's still going to have games where he does actually shoot well, because that's kind of how averages work. He's inefficient on average, but you're still going to have those games where he knocks down a lot of shots, and 5,100 is kind of just a floor price for him. So I think that Ivy in tournaments makes sense. And then Boyan, 2% ownership. He's been a fantasy point per minute guy without Cade Cunningham. He's averaging about 32 minutes per game, should lead the team in minutes tonight. It's tough to prioritize him, but he does look interesting, especially on FanDuel, where he's only 6,100.
No, definitely. And I think, yeah, Jaden Ivey's an efficiency game away from paying off that price tag. And why not against a Sacramento matchup is my theory here. But as we were breaking down that, yeah, PJ Washington has been ruled out. And I'm trying to think of what that rotation for Charlotte's going to look like, depending on the Gordon Hayward situation there. But with him out, well, obviously Jalen McDaniels could play some extra run there. Does he become a viable option in this Atlanta matchup? Do you think he's a strong value play, Jalen McDaniels?
So I'm assuming it still depends on the starting lineup. I'm guessing they just start Hayward and Oubre now, but if they were to start McDaniels, it would make him look more interesting.
Yeah, it's going to depend on what happens with Hayward in those minutes, right? So McDaniels, yeah, I'm trying to think this through right now. If that's someone that I want to go to in aggressive fashion, depending on what that ownership looks like. We got it well before lock comes up, but that's something to touch on for live before lock. Hit that like button for us. And also check out our BetMGM offer. It's really exciting. The link in description where you can get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus, an awesome, awesome offer for you guys to take advantage of. Do not miss out on that. And maybe producer Tyler can drop the link in the chat if you guys can't find it in the description. And hit the like button. On to Indiana and Cleveland we go. This Indiana team, it's the Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Buddy Hield. Those are kind of their big three here. 9-4 for Halliburton on both sites. Look, he's been really good. There's no denying his fantasy upside night in and night out. Miles Turner at 6,900. I do have slim interest on DraftKings just because of his ceiling games at times, but the minutes are kind of all over the spot. It's tough to know what that's going to happen. He is going to get Allen and Mobley on the other side of things, but definitely Allen has the upside to pay off those price tags. Where you get the blocks over there on FanDuel, 7,700 seems a little too steep for my liking. Buddy Hield seems favorable at $6,100 there. And this team, no significant injuries here. Pretty much everyone is healthy, and therefore that's another reason why this team is not getting much ownership. And kind of a Cleveland spot where I don't expect the greatest of results, but they definitely have some tournament upside in guys like Halliburton, Hield, and Turner. Talk to me about this Pacers trio.
Yeah, so I mean, this team is pulling no ownership, and for the most part, they kind of shouldn't. Like, it's a really tough matchup against Cleveland. Tyrese Halliburton's always appealing to get to, but the thing that makes it really, really difficult today is just the way that pricing at the guard positions is laid out. You have that 8K range where we've already talked about LaMelo, we've already talked about De'Aaron Fox. We still have Fred VanVleet to talk about. We have a couple other guys in that range that look pretty good to talk about. And then you also have a tier just above Halliburton where you have James Harden, you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you have Trae Young. Those guys all look better than Halliburton. So it's a situation where, like, yeah, you're never wrong for playing a low-owned Halliburton because he is really good, but you can get low-owned guys that are in better spots than Halliburton. So he kind of just falls to like a third-tier play for me. The guy that I'm actually most interested in is Miles Turner, and even that is just very modest interest here. He's getting 2% ownership. His playing time has ramped up a bit recently. He's averaging about 32 minutes per game over his last 5. You've seen a couple of games where he does avoid foul trouble, plays 34 and a half minutes. Last game played about 31 and a half. Did have a little bit of foul trouble though. Really, really tough matchup, but he is about a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. He's only 6,900. Does have block upside, so there's some volatility there too, which is nice. If you get 32 plus minutes from Turner, he's likely to look pretty good. The problem, and it's kind of like Halliburton, is the same with Turner, though, where there's just other low-owned centers that I also like that look really good. So there's really nothing that I love from this team. Halliburton and Turner would be the guys I expect to get to the most, with Turner being first, but wouldn't be surprised if I just don't get here.
Agreed, and I'm with you there. But on the Cleveland side of things, I definitely think it's a a different story. I think Donovan Mitchell has been balling. 8,600 on DraftKings looks pretty solid to me. 9,100 on FanDuel seems like an okay play. Nothing great. Limited ownership, sub 10% on both sides for Mitchell. Darius Garland has been kind of rusty, it feels like, over the last couple of weeks. 7,800 and 7,700. $32 on Yahoo. Mitchell, sorry, $36 on Yahoo looks pretty strong there. I don't mind sprinkling in some Allen or Mobley, but we're getting some ownership to guys like Lamar Stevens and Kevin Love on DraftKings. I don't think I can go there. Maybe Kevin Love, 3,600. If you fall on him, sure, but man, I can't go to these guys in any sort of significant fashion. Talk to me about Kevin Love and Lamar Stevens getting double-digit ownership right now.
Yeah, so it's tough. So Lamar Stevens played 38 minutes last game,
Jeez.
which great. If he does that again, he's going to look really good at 3,500. The concern I have is that in that game, Cedi Osman didn't play at all, and Isaac Okoro didn't play in the second half. Could they do that again? Sure. But the way I said it this morning, kind of the way I look at this is a month from now or 2 weeks from now, do I think it's more likely that we look back, we look at the Cleveland rotation and be like, oh, remember when Isaac Okoro and Cedi Osman were part of the rotation? Or is it more likely that we're just like, hey, remember that one time that they didn't play and Lamar Stevens played 38 minutes? And I think it's more likely the latter. Like, I just don't think that long-term you're getting Cedi kicked out of the rotation and Okoro kicked out of the rotation. The most minutes that Stevens had played as a starter other than that game, he topped 30 minutes once. Other than that, he was at 28 a couple of times. If you go to 28 minutes here, he does project as a reasonable point per dollar option. So I do think one reason he's getting the ownership is that you do have good pay up options tonight, and we don't have a ton of value at the moment. But for me, I would just rather build lineups where, if I have to lose out on some Jokic or some Luka, who I think they both look great, that's fine, because I do like the 10K range so much. I like the 8K range so much. I would rather just get away from a popular Lamar Stevens and go to some other guys, because I just don't think on a slate of this size with as many good options as we have, even if you get 21, 22 DraftKings points from Lamar Stevens, I don't think it's likely to be enough to really help you win tournaments. Kevin Love's a little bit different because I don't know what to make of his playing time. He hasn't been playing a lot recently. He played 16 minutes last game. But for most of this year, even with Jarrett Allen in, he's been playing around 20 minutes per game, and you're getting him at basically a floor price tag. So 30 minutes of Lamar Stevens is basically equal to 17 minutes of Kevin Love on a point per minute basis. But at some point, Kevin Love probably starts to play a little bit more. They have been playing him alongside Jarrett Allen recently. He's just not getting all of the backup center minutes because you're getting some minutes where Mobley is there. So it's been kind of a weird rotation. If Love plays 16 minutes here, he projects as a fine point per dollar option, very similar to Stevens. And again, it would be a situation where I would rather just not have Kevin Love if he does play 16 minutes. But you do have that potential for him to just play a little bit more. And if he does, he's a lot more likely to just destroy the salary. So if I have to go to one of these guys, I think I get to Kevin Love first. They do both scare me at their current ownership, though. I will say I like Donovan Mitchell a lot at 8,600. I think that at his current ownership, I'm probably going to end up being a bit overweight there. He's averaged about 36 minutes per game in the games that he's played with Darius Garland this year, excluding opening night where Garland got hurt immediately. He's been around a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. You get him in a good spot against Indiana. I think he's a little bit underpriced at 8,600. I think Garland is another LaMelo Ball pivot, where I think Ball looks better at 8K than Garland does at 7,800, but I don't think he looks 3 times better, which is what the ownership is showing right now. So I like both of those guys. Mitchell a little bit more than Garland, but I like them both. And then Jarrett Allen at center. I mentioned, kind of having some interest in Miles Turner on the other side, but I have a lot more interest in Jarrett Allen than I do Turner, because the spot's better for everybody on Cleveland than it is the Indiana guys. But Jarrett Allen is playing absolutely massive minutes since coming back from his injury. He's averaging 36 minutes per game over his last 5. And even the one game since he's been back where he didn't get there, he was in foul trouble, but was clearly on pace for it if he hadn't been in foul trouble. Assuming this game is relatively competitive, I think you're getting 35, 36 minutes from Jarrett Allen. He's only 7K. He's getting 4% ownership. I really, really like him in tournaments as a mid-range center.
Yeah, no, Allen looks pretty outstanding. FanDuel price tag 7K. Really like going to him. And yeah, I guess the Kevin Love ownership and Lamar Stevens ownership, the more I think about it, we haven't touched on any players sub 4K yet on the show. So I guess you got to pay down somewhere to pay up to get some studs. But if I were to pick one of these guys, I'm going to go with Kevin Love. because Kevin Love has, I believe, more pathways to succeeding, even if he's going to be projected for less minutes, just because of who Kevin Love is. He could rack up a double double in 20 minutes. He
Yeah.
still has that within him, but it's just kind of like the trying to find maybe it's getting a little too cute to force in pivots off of cheap guys, but I'm going to be waiting on some news and see what happens. Obviously, a wonky rotation last time out. We'll see what Bickerstaff ends up doing.
The way I think
For
about it with Love versus Stevens is with Stevens, you kind of need two things to break your way. One, you need him to play more minutes than normal. And then two, you need him to actually produce fantasy points. And that's not what he's out there for. Like if he plays more minutes, it's for defense. And so like what he's out there for does not translate to good fantasy production. Obviously, if he plays more minutes, he's going to still get more fantasy points. But with Love, you kind of just need the minutes because Kevin Love's going to score fantasy points. His job is to rebound and score, and that's great for fantasy. So with Stevens, it's like, oh, well, you need the coaches to give him the minutes, and then you need him to play above his head from a fantasy standpoint to really be glad you rostered him. To really be happy you rostered Love, you kind of just need him to get more minutes.
Yeah, no, that definitely seems like the situation here. I think moving on to the next game, we should keep going, I guess. Now it's Orlando and Boston as Orlando comes in. I want to say they are underdogs, but a significant amount. Orlando
They're a
is
huge underdog.
12, yeah, 12 and a half point underdogs. And it's a tough situation here as Markel Fultz has returned and he's been taking away some usage here and there. He did drop a 50 piece the other night, but there's other guys here. It's a tough Boston spot where I'm not getting to much of this team, but Bonchero, Franz Wagner, Bull has been a highlight reel, but it's a tough Boston spot. I think there are so many other better options than going to this Orlando team. It's slowly going to become a tough situation when everyone is healthy. But are there any cheap price points you can go to? Are you still interested in going to a Markel Fultz at that price tag? 5,100 on DraftKings comes in at 6,500 for on FanDuel. I know he was great last game out, but it's a whole other situation tonight.
Yeah, it's just a different slate too. Like I still think Fultz is fine in tournaments because I do think he's got a ceiling. But the way I'm just kind of looking at it is there's so many relatively low owned guards that I really like that I think it's gonna be tough for me to get there. Even at this price point, I would rather play Jaden Ivey than Markel Fultz. I think they project for similar minutes. Ivey just clearly has the better matchup. They're similar point per minute guys, so it's hard for me to say like oh Fultz is a great play. If you want to play some $5,100 Fultz, I do think he's still a little bit underpriced, but there's just so many underpriced guards today. It's tough to get there. The only other guy that I would have some interest in from Orlando is potentially Paolo Banchero. He's 7,700. If Orlando does somehow hang in this game, he's playing north of 34 minutes most likely, and he's probably a big reason why they are hanging in this game. That being said, I don't really want to get to Orlando here. I think there's a lot of good contrarian plays on this slate. I think the Orlando guys are kind of a step behind a lot of those for me.
Agreed. I'm good to move on to the Boston side of things, where I have some interest whenever Tatum and Jaylen Brown are in the slate because of their tournament upside they bring to the table. Favorable Orlando spot. Al Horford is expected to return, so no more Blake Griffin in the starting lineup. He might be completely out of the rotation when Al Horford is there, but I like going to Tatum and maybe sprinkling in some Brogdon at a 40. I believe Brogdon is at 4,900. And also another big insertion in the Celtics lineup. I believe Robert Williams is expected to play today, which throws a wrench into the front court in terms of minutes and rebounding production for guys like Al Horford and what the bench is going to look like. How do we go upon Boston as they're getting some guys back and it'll be a completely fresh rotation with the Robert Williams return, pending return, I believe.
Yeah, so we have Al Horford available. We have Williams expected to be back. Marcus Smart's questionable with an illness. If Smart is out, it does open up minutes for guys like Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White in a good matchup, both sub 5K. They would both become pretty interesting options if Smart is out. If we assume Smart is in, there's not a ton that stands out here, but it is still a pretty appealing team in tournaments simply because if this game does stay competitive, it's a really good spot. Like there is a lot of blowout risk here. They're 12-point favorites, like you said. They still have a 119 implied total, and you're just not getting any ownership here. So $9,200 Jaylen Brown, kind of interesting. 11-1 Jason Tatum, I think pretty difficult to get to just because the 10K range is so strong. But there's nothing to me that stands out from Boston. I expect for right now Robert Williams to just basically slot in as the backup center. Obviously, as he gets his legs under him, he'll play more minutes because he's really, really good. But for now, I don't think I get to him in DFS. Like, I just don't think I'm going to end up getting enough minutes to him. There's not anything that really stands out from Boston. But if you want to take some shots on, Brown, Tatum, Brogdon, all of that's fine. And again, if Smart gets Smart, if he's in, is also perfectly fine in tournaments. If he gets ruled out, I do think White and Brogdon start to look better.
Yeah, White and Brogdon definitely get a nice little bump if Marcus Smart is out. I think we're good to move on. And before we move on, if everyone who's watching us, if they want to hit that like button, that would be awesome for us. And also, make sure to check out our free 3-day trial that we have happening on the site. Producer Tyler, if you can throw a link in the chat, that'd be fantastic. It might be also in the link description for us. We've got access to these NBA tools and projections, also the lineup generator, which is pretty magnificent in terms of elevating your DFS game to the next level. So take advantage of that situation. And also shout out to our sponsor, No House Advantage. We have a fun, exciting sign-up deal with them. That is found in the link in the description as well. Now we're going on to the Golden State and Philly game, which have been really exciting if Steph Curry was going to play. Unfortunately, he hurt his shoulder, and this is going to open up some opportunity for us. We also got a late afternoon Klay Thompson ruled questionable injury report citing there, where that's going to change things up, and we're going to get a situation similar to what we saw them when they played Utah last Wednesday night. And it's going to be the Jordan Poole show. And as we continue to say the Jordan Poole show, he is now priced appropriately for this role. I think so. At 8,200 on DraftKings, 7,700 on FanDuel, you can certainly play. Now, that is only if Klay Thompson is in. Now, if Klay Thompson is out, I think you can definitely play Jordan Poole, even at this elevated price tag. He should be running the show. He's going to shoot as much as he can. $27 and $28 for Klay and Jordan Poole over there on Yahoo certainly look like strong options. But there's other guys to go to, that being a Jonathan Kuminga, 4,900. He has elevated his play, and he has earned this price tag, 4,900 on both sides. I have no issues going to Kuminga. DiVincenzo played a ton of minutes last game out with Klay Thompson out. He's now priced up at 57 and 5,300. Seems steep, but he's going to play a ton of minutes if Klay is out. Because I think he's going to play a lot of minutes as is. This Golden State situation, there's a way to navigate this slate. Even a guy like Ty Jerome, that I feel like if we nail this Golden State rotation down in minutes, I think you're going to be in a good spot to differentiate yourself without no Curry today. Talk to me about the injury designation to Klay and Jordan Poole and his upside tonight with no Curry.
Yes. So Poole, I agree with you. Poole's going to look better if Klay is out, but he's going to look good regardless. And right now he's not getting ownership with Klay projected in. So he's another guy that's in that range where you can pivot off of LaMelo. You haven't gotten many minutes this year where Poole has played alongside Klay without Curry. But in the 89 minutes that has happened, you have a 37% usage rate and a 26% assist percentage for Poole. This is someone that is just going to chuck. Once you take Curry off the floor, Poole's just going to go nuts. Obviously, if Klay is out, you can expect more production from Poole, but I think he's a really high upside option one way or the other. But again, he's not going to project quite as well as LaMelo, but also I don't think there should be as big an ownership gap as you have. If Thompson's ruled out, Poole certainly looks better. The rest of the team is kind of difficult to talk about because we have no idea what the starting lineup is going to be. Steve Kerr kind of just changes that up frequently. Even in that last game against Utah, where Jonathan Kuminga ended up having a huge game off the bench, he didn't really play a ton in the first half, and then he played really well down the stretch, got a lot of minutes. At 4,900, I think Kuminga is interesting, but if he's coming off the bench, he's pretty risky. If he's starting, obviously you can feel a little bit better about his minutes. Since the start of last year, he's been about a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. So you have seen pricing adjust here quite a bit, like you were saying. Ty Jerome in that Utah game started and played 24 minutes. If he starts today, I would expect about the same. DiVincenzo's up to 5,700, so I think it's tough to really want to get there. I actually don't think I'm going to end up liking Golden State all that much, especially if Thompson is in. If he's out, then it does open up some other stuff, but it's still just going to be a risky team because Kerr will go pretty deep into his bench from a rotation standpoint.
Yeah, and definitely. And we just also got some word that Jalen McDaniels is going to start for PJ Washington for the Hornets. So he seems like an okay.
The rest of the starters were?
I do not have that at this moment. So keep an eye on the rest of the starting lineup. I think McDaniels could play. maybe upwards of 30 minutes today. I think that seems reasonable right now for a projection. But I don't mind taking some shots at a guy like Ty Jerome, even at 3K. Uh, I know I think the opportunity cost of guard might be high going to a guy like him, but I gotta take some chances somewhere. Yeah, this Golden State team is going to come down to the Clay situation, and that's going to pinpoint on how to attack these guys. As is, the way things stand, Poole looks like a solid play. He'll look excellent if Clay is out. But any final thoughts on Golden State before we move on to the Philly side of things?
No.
All right, onto the Philly side we go. It's the Harden and Embiid duo. And Joel Embiid is 11-5. 11-5 on both sides, 53 on Yahoo. I really, really like the James Harden price tag at 9-9 and 10-3, and only $41 on Yahoo. I think this game has blowout potential written all over it, where I'm going to take my chances with the cheaper player among these studs to get there. But Embiid is expensive. There are some other great centers on the slate potentially to touch on. But it's a Golden State matchup where he should just get his and eat as much as he can. This team has been playing really well of late as Harden has returned. But talk to me about Harden and Embiid. That's really who those two guys I'm looking at. No real interest in Tobias Harris or their backcourt. I know Melton's getting some ownership at 63 on FanDuel, but I'm looking elsewhere. Harden and Embiid, really the two guys I think you can play on the Sixers. But do you have a preference between one or the other?
I prefer Harden just because he is cheaper. I like them both. If you find ways to get to Embiid, then great. The problem is just, like you said, you have center where there are some high upside mid-range guys. You have the most popular value play on the slate at the position. You have Jokic, not that much more expensive than Embiid. Harden, I think, is just easier to get to. Point guard and shooting guard eligibility at 9,900. He's averaged 38.4 minutes per game in the games he's played with Embiid this year. He's averaged about 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. If this game comes down to the wire, you're probably getting 40 plus minutes from Harden. So it's just, on average, you're getting like 38 minutes there. He projects really, really well. And then on top of that, he's just not getting ownership, which he's at 8% on DraftKings. I think he's going under own. This is another guy where, if the field's just going to play LaMelo Ball and they're going to play Jalen Brunson and they're going to play Jamal Murray, like I think those are all good plays. But if you're just going to leave guys like James Harden at sub 10% ownership for me, I'm going to take that.
No, I think Harden looks like a solid option tonight. Any final thoughts on Philly before we just move on to Brooklyn and Toronto? Just because I don't think any of these other guys are necessary in a 10-game slate. Do some of these guys have tournament upside? Can you convince me maybe a Tobias Harris gets it done again? Unlikely. 7,700 on FanDuel is very expensive for me. $26 on Yahoo you can play, but Melton, Milton, Tucker, Niang. I mean, I can't really go to any one of these guys in any form of confidence. Final thoughts on the Sixers?
Yeah, I don't have anything other than Harden and Embiid. I do recommend doubling whatever exposure you were going to get to Harden now that Brandon Katz has voiced his disapproval.
Oh, wow. Brandon Katz is dictating your decisions tonight. Shout out to Brandon Katz, loyal viewer to the Stokastic YouTube channel. But other loyal viewers, if you guys can hit that like button, check out the NHA deal we have going tonight, and the 2 months free of Stokastic Plus with BetMGM. That's definitely something to take advantage of. On to Brooklyn and Toronto, and it's going to be an exciting basketball matchup here as it's KD and Kyrie 10-9 and 8-5 for these two guys, 10-3, 8-7 over there on FanDuel. While I like taking some chances on both of these players when they're on the slate, Kyrie's getting some ownership. Kevin Durant is not, and I think I'm going to be well over the field. Not well over the field. I'll make sure to get above the field on Kevin Durant tonight. I think he's been exceptional of late, and I know it's a Toronto spot where they could throw different defensive schemes at him to slow him down, but it's KD. He should be just fine. Ben Simmons is 6,500 on DraftKings. Look, it's kind of hit or miss with Ben Simmons. It's tough for him to get there offensively. He's going to really rely on peripheral stats being rebounds, assists, and steals and blocks. TJ Warren also has entered the rotation. So this is a pretty fully healthy Brooklyn Nets rotation. Patty Mills, I believe, is out tonight. That might give some extra minutes to Seth Curry, but I don't even expect it to change much. Maybe Edmund Sumner corrects the rotation a little bit there. Royce O'Neal has come down to earth a little bit, thankfully. But this net situation, KD and Kyrie, maybe some Nick Claxton, a lot of low-owned guys who I think have strong tournament upside.
I think this is one of the least appealing teams to me. Kyrie
Okay.
Irving is interesting at 8,500. I think he's another LaMelo pivot, but I also think I probably get to Fox more. I probably get to Donovan Mitchell more. Um, I don't really have interest in KD. I know he's really, like, obviously he's really good, but I just don't expect to really get there. I'm going to have Tatum projected ahead of him. I have James Harden projected ahead of him for less. SGA projects ahead of him for less for me. So it's just going to be a night where if Durant goes out there and throws up 60, 70 fantasy points, I'm just not going to be there. But Claxton at 6,200 should play 28 to 30 minutes. There's just centers I like more. Simmons working his way back. I have him in for 26 minutes. Can't really get to him in that amount of time. So I'll probably take some shots at a 7% owned Irving. He's the only guy on the team getting any ownership. I'm not really interested in the Nets.
Okay. I think I disagree a little bit there. I think I'll be definitely getting above the field on some of those Nets, especially Katie and Kyrie. I think they're made for solid pivots. I know they don't grade as greatest point per dollar value plays, but I definitely like their upside at their projected ownership right now. Even at over there in Yahoo, they definitely stick out to me. Any final thoughts on the Nets before we move on to Toronto?
Nope.
All right, Toronto side. Uh, a bunch of other low-owned players who have upside. That being Siakam, Van Vliet. They continue to be without OG Anunoby, and we saw Gary Trent Jr. enter the rotation, and he just stunk. He was awful. Enter the starting lineup. Pardon me there. 5,900, 6,200 for Gary Trent Jr. While Siakam 10.5 and 9,800 on DraftKings and FanDuel. Definitely like that FanDuel price tag for Siakam. Was disappointing last time out. Van Vliet lit it up as he was kind of like a must-have in your lineups by the end of the night. 8K on DK seems solid. 8,700 on FanDuel. I'm staying away. That is expensive for Van Vliet, in my opinion. $33 on Yahoo seems like a neutral play. Nothing too exciting. But talk to me about the big three. Also, Scotty Barnes. I didn't mention him, but I'll let you talk about him.
Yeah, I think all three look really, really good in tournaments because they just play so many minutes in competitive games. Pascal Siakam is one of the other guys I forgot to mention, but that I like more than Durant. Like I just have him projected higher, and he's a little bit less expensive. He's back to playing huge minutes. You kind of saw when he first came back from injury, he was somewhat limited. You also just had some weird games where he was either in foul trouble or the game blew out. But now he's averaging 38 minutes per game over his last five. In competitive games, you're getting much more than that. So I think he looks really, really good here. Van Vliet, another LaMelo pivot in competitive games. You can easily get 40 minutes from him. I have him projected for 37. Same goes for Scotty Barnes. They both just look, Van Vliet and Barnes both look like sort of just mediocre, like average point per dollar plays, but the ceiling is just really high on them given how many minutes they can potentially play at low ownership. Siakam looks the best to me of the three. I just really don't understand why he's only pulling 3% ownership, especially with power forward eligibility in addition to center eligibility. The only guy on this team that is getting ownership is Thad Young, and I sort of get it because we are starved for cheap value right now. He did play 27 and a half minutes last game, which is good. The concern that I have is that his rates when he plays alongside Pascal Siakam just basically get nerfed across the board. And it makes sense. Siakam's a good rebounder. He's a good playmaker. He's a good scorer. And Young is somebody that can do all of those things, but his rates in every category go down when Siakam is out there. Young's played 116 minutes alongside Siakam this year. He's averaged 0.63 DraftKings points per minute. He only has a 10% usage rate, 7% rebounding percentage, 11% assist percentage. All of those rates are down like 3 points from his overall numbers. So the minutes are nice, the salary is nice, but he is center only on DraftKings, and he does take a hit playing alongside Siakam. So it's more so a guy where if he wasn't getting ownership, I would be interested in throwing some darts at him and hoping to kind of get lucky because it would open up guys like Luka Doncic. But if he's going to get the ownership, I don't really see the point in going there. I don't think he's that good of a play.
Yeah, it's definitely a situation to take a look at. And I do think the ownership on this team could change just because of the pending news in Golden State and this being, I believe they start at the same time, if not 30 minutes after. So the ownership on this team could change just because of the available flexibility and available spots left once we get that Clay news. But on to New York and Chicago we go. And we are cruising along this 10-game slate. So hit that like button for us. And New York and Chicago, a rematch of, I believe, Wednesday night. They played each other, and here we are yet again. And the Knicks side of things, this game went to overtime last game, so be aware when you're looking at the box score. Julius Randle balled out 8,700, 8,300. I think now this is like kind of the ceiling price tag, I want to say, for Randall. I know Brunson was questionable last game. He did end up playing. He's at 6,800. 7,600 on FanDuel seems quite expensive, but 6,800 on DraftKings seems like a spot where you can go to. I want to also, we got news that Davion Mitchell is going to be out. Do you think De'Aaron Fox could steal some minutes there where he might be like, instead of a projection from 35, it could be like 38 maybe? That might be a little too high, but I do think it's kind of an important rotational piece that was taking some minutes away. Maybe Dellavedova takes those minutes, but I just wanted to quickly touch on that Davion Mitchell being ruled out situation.
Yeah, I think that is actually important. It's kind of like, we haven't gotten to the Knicks yet, but we'll talk about it with Julius Randle and Obi Toppin. I think there's a pretty good chance that Dellavedova ends up in the rotation, especially if Herter ends up being out. But you're not going to basically guarantee Dellavedova the minutes that you're typically going to guarantee for Davion Mitchell. So I think it does increase it makes it easier for De'Aaron Fox to just play a lot of minutes here. I think, instead of projecting around 33, I'm likely to go to like 35 now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch on that. But back to the Knicks side of things, RJ Barrett, 6,800, 7,200 on FanDuel seems pretty expensive. These Knicks players are outside of Randall on FanDuel seem a little not, they don't seem like tournament options really. Mitchell Robinson certainly can get the blocks over there. That's really about it. I know you want to touch on the top end situation for Randall, where Randall could definitely soak up some minutes. Uh, I just think the Randall ownership seems a little too much, but maybe I'm overthinking the situation and Randall is just a really good play, even at this elevated price tag for this season.
Yeah, so what I like about Randall here is that there's basically been two things. He's been really good from a real life standpoint this year, but there's been two things that have hurt him a little bit from a fantasy standpoint compared to what he's done in previous years. One is the addition of Jalen Brunson, which cuts into his assist percentage. That problem obviously still exists. But the other is that you've been getting 48 minutes at center from guys that do not include Julius Randle or Obi Toppin. So it basically means that every minute that Toppin plays is taking a minute away from Randle. So you were seeing 33, 34 minutes for Randle so that Toppin could get his 14 or 15. You take out Obi Toppin and you're getting 36 plus minutes from Randle. If this game's competitive, you're probably getting 38, 40. On average, you're getting 36 or 37. So I think he's just in a bit of a different role with Toppin out. Makes him look really good. The matchup's good as well. So I do like getting to Julius Randle. He's pulling 13% ownership. I think that's fine. Jalen Brunson, 6,800, leads the team with 17% ownership. I think he's a good value option. Should play 32, 33 minutes. He's about a 1.15 DraftKings point per minute guy. It's just a situation. I think he's a good play. But I do just like so many low owned guards. I think it's likely that maybe I just kind of end up moving pieces around so that I do end up getting a little bit more of them and maybe a little bit less Brunson. But I do think Brunson's a good play. I think Randall's a good play. Beyond that, it's basically just tournament stuff for me. RJ Barrett should play more minutes as well with Obi Toppin out. He's pulling 10% ownership. That's around where I think it should be. Mitchell Robinson's averaging 28 minutes per game. You get tons of block upside with him, which is nice. I do think he's a reasonable Okongwu pivot, getting 3% ownership instead of 60 for $500 more. But again, Okongwu does certainly project better. So the only guys that I would say are, like, I think Randall and Brunson are both legitimately good plays. I think Barrett and Robinson are interesting tournament plays.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right there. I don't have much to add. Definitely the situation. I think maybe some of these players come a little bit lower on than we have projected right now by the time this game starts based on the news. But onto the Chicago side we go. I'm always interested in sprinkling in some Zach LaVine at these respective price tags, 7,300 on both sites. I know the minutes haven't been the greatest all season long and maybe kind of disappointing fantasy wise as well. But DeRozan also comes in at 8,300 and 8,400. Those are the two guys who I always have interest in. Alex Caruso was in the starting lineup last time out because of the Ayo Dosunmu injury. Ayo Dosunmu is expected to play, I believe, tonight, or is he still questionable?
He's questionable.
He's still questionable. So if he's out, if Dosunmu's out, I don't mind sprinkling in some Caruso. I know we haven't touched on some sub 4K value. Caruso comes in at 3,800 on DraftKings. He comes in at 4,600 on FanDuel. That's kind of a stay away price tag for me over there on FanDuel. But Vooch is another guy, center only spot, 7,300 on DraftKings. He always has some sort of tournament upside. Vooch's like production seems really random at times. I mean, it's really tough for him to get going offensively when he's playing third fiddle to DeRozan and Levine. But it's DeRozan and Levine. I prefer Levine to DeRozan. How about you?
Uh, yeah, so Cruz or Levine's the only guy really pulling ownership here. I really like the $7,300 price tag. I do think he's probably going a little bit over-owned just because there are so many good guard plays today. But again, as long as you're contrarian somewhere else in your lineup, Levine's going to be a good piece to fit in there. DeRozan and Vooch both look fine. I don't love the $8,300 salary on DeRozan, but the type of ceiling he has. Vooch is certainly another high upside mid-range center, should get you 33, 34 minutes. As far as value here goes, I expect Caruso to start either way. He had moved ahead of Dosunmu prior to Dosunmu's injury as far as the starter goes. So I think that he's going to start, probably play 26, 27 minutes, maybe a little bit more if Dosunmu is out. He's 3,800. I don't really want to get there either. I will say I don't think he's any worse than Lamar Stevens or these other guys that are randomly pulling ownership. So, a 2% Alex Caruso versus a 14% Lamar Stevens. If I have to play one, give me Alex Caruso. Same can be said for an 8% owned Patrick Williams. But really, Levine's the one that stands out the most to me. DeRozan and Vooch look pretty good. Outside of that, I don't really expect to get too much.
Awesome. On to Minnesota and Oklahoma City we go. And this Minnesota team has two key guys who are questionable. One being D'Angelo Russell, who was ruled out last time. And we saw Austin Rivers get the start. And while the other key news is Rudy Gobert is questionable, which is massive news because if Gobert is out, it is Naz Reid season. And at that price tag, Naz Reid will become a strong play at $4,000. And Anthony Edwards, I think, is a strong play regardless at $8,900 and $8,800. I like getting above the field on a guy like him. Now, if Rudy Gobert plays, I think he's an exceptional center option to go to. This is the team that he did get ejected for tripping, I think, Kenrich Williams. So he's questionable. If he's out, that will definitely open up some exciting value to go to, especially Naz Reid. And maybe you can take some chances on McDaniels as well, but he's already at 4,200. McDaniels is not an offensive threat. You're really hoping for rebounds and the minutes to be on the right side of things there. Slow-mo is someone who's been playing really well in terms of fantasy-wise. He's priced up at 5,700, 5,500 for slow-mo over there on FanDuel. That seems kind of the ceiling for me, but he's getting a lot of ownership right now where I'm trying to look elsewhere. I mean, convince me that I'm wrong about slow-mo and I shouldn't look elsewhere.
No, I mean, I think he's a good point per dollar play. It's kind of like DeAndre Hunter, just, for a little bit more money, a little bit better fantasy producer. But without Karl Anthony Towns on the floor this year, Kyle Anderson, 0.91 DraftKings points per minute. He should give you around 34 minutes tonight. He projects as a good option. I think that if you have contrarian pieces elsewhere in your lineup, then by all means put in Kyle Anderson. But it's also just, I think, one of the easier spots, easier like popular plays to pivot away from, just because there are plenty of guys that are going to look similar to him in this mid 5K range. But I think, like, I understand why the ownership's there. I just think he's also going a bit over-owned. Jaden McDaniels kind of similar, 4,200 small forward, power forward eligibility. The one thing that does stand out about this slate, and it is why you're seeing ownership push to guys like this, there's a ton of opportunity cost at the guard spots. There's a ton of good center plays. There's not as many good forward plays. Like, obviously you have Tatum, Durant, those guys at the top, Siakam, but it's the position where I think you're most likely to pay down in addition to Onyeka Okongwu to get value. So that's why you're seeing ownership push up on these guys, but still probably getting a little bit more than they deserve. McDaniels this year, 275 minutes without Towns, 0.69 DraftKings points per minute. He is likely to play into the mid-30s though, which is obviously good. So from a value standpoint, him and Anderson make sense. The D'Angelo Russell news is really big because if he is out, it opens up Jalen Noel at 4,600. He's not, like, he's still risky because you probably are going to get Austin Rivers starting in place of Russell again if Russell is out. Wendell Moore was in the rotation. Bryn Forbes was played a handful of minutes. Noel still got 25, 26 minutes, and he certainly could play more if he's playing well and if the game's competitive. He's a good point per minute guy, so he would be an appealing option if Russell is out. If Russell is in, I like getting to Russell at 7,600 because you still don't have Jordan McLaughlin, and that means more minutes for D'Angelo Russell. He averages several minutes more per game when McLaughlin is out, so makes him look good. And then obviously you also don't have Karl Anthony Towns. Russell has averaged 1.06 DraftKings points per minute without Towns on the floor this year. Also, if Russell's out, it makes a difference for Anthony Edwards. Not in terms of playing time. He's going to play a lot one way or the other. But Edwards has averaged 1.21 DraftKings points per minute overall without Karl Anthony Towns on the floor, 1.34 DraftKings points per minute if you also take off D'Angelo Russell. Edwards has a 20% assist percentage in addition to a 31.5% usage rate without Towns or Russell on the floor. So it'll make him look even better. And then you get to the center spot where I'm with you. If Rudy Gobert is in, he's another relatively low-owned mid-range center that's going to look good at 7,600. If he is out, you get 4K Naz Reid at, 10% ownership right now. Kind of a weird ownership projection because we don't know Gobert's status. But you get a guy that averages over a fantasy point per minute at 4K. I wish Reid had power forward eligibility, but he's center only on both DraftKings and FanDuel. But either way, he's going to look like a great value option if Gobert does get ruled out.
Yeah, Naz Reid did lay it down on this Thunder team when he did check in for Gobert after Gobert was ejected the other night. I want to say that was 2 Saturdays ago at this point, or a Saturday ago, whenever that was. But yeah, this is really important news. I would think this is the biggest news team on the slate because of the number of minutes that are up for grabs if these guys are both ruled out, or even if one person's ruled out. Now, if they're both in, I still like going to Russell and Gobert. I think they're solid options. I think they'll be extremely low owned. A good OKC spot. So keep an eye on the situation. The news will dictate the slate, I think, in my opinion, especially if Naz Reid becomes starting and playing, he'll look like a very strong play heading into the nightcap. All right, on the other side we go. Hit that like button. We are nearing the final few games here. Oklahoma City, it's SGA, and it's kind of, I'm going to sound like a broken record. It's always going to be just SGA for me, 9,700 and 10-2. But Josh Giddey's kind of proved me wrong of late. He's had some good games recently. $47 for SGA on Yahoo, 27 for Giddey. I believe Jalen Williams is getting ownership. Some of these guys are getting some ownership here. And I am always skeptical what the minutes are going to look like for guys outside of SGA, Giddey, and Dort, just because Mark Dagnall just really messes around with the rotation. He does it for coaching tendencies and like matchup tendencies, but it really hurts us for DFS purposes. I just look at the big three and I kind of like get to some of them and I don't really get to much elsewhere. Maybe I should, maybe tonight. I don't know. Do you feel the same sentiment as I do?
Sort of, in that I don't trust OKC, but I do. They are kind of just running out of. They're not running out of bodies. They still have 11 of them. They're running out of actual players that are typically in their rotation. I did actually want to refresh the injury report and see if they've called up anybody from the G League since earlier. So Lindy Waters is now available, so that's another rotation piece that can screw things up. But Darius Bazley is out, in addition to Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. That's the big news that makes them a little bit more interesting. So starting with the big three, like you can more or less trust Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey, and Lou Dort. They're all pulling around 15% ownership. They all make sense. I think SGA looks great here in particular. Giddey and Dort both look fine as well. Dort, especially because, like I was saying before, Ford, you're kind of looking for cheap Ford guys. So like Dort's one where he's getting ownership, but he's getting less right now than Hunter. He's getting less than Anderson. I think he's very similar to those guys. Shai looks great. I think he's comparable to James Harden. He is just pulling more ownership than Harden right now. Giddey at 7,200 is comparable to your Jamal Murray and Jalen Brunson type guys, Zach LaVine as well. I'm curious to see what the starting lineup's going to be. Pokusevski came off the bench last game. He only played 8 minutes. Bazley started. Now Bazley's out as well. My guess at the starting lineup is that you get Giddey, SGA, Dort, Jalen Williams, and Poku. In which case, I am interested in going to Pokusevski at 4,100. If he even plays 24 minutes, he's going to look like a pretty good value option. If he comes off the bench, I'm really nervous about him. But I do think that you're missing two of the centers now, so it does hopefully open some stuff up for Pokusevski. As far as the rest of the team goes, I still don't really anticipate throwing darts here. Like Isaiah Joe's played pretty well. He's 3,500, but I don't think you really need to get there on this slate. So assuming that the starting lineup is what I said, I'm interested in all 5 of the starters, and I'm not really interested in anything else.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to look at it there. And we'll keep an eye on that starting lineup for sure, because I never know what he's going to do. And we'll see. I know that they're missing those guys in Darius Bazley and JRE, so there should be some minutes in the front court.
And to SMP said it, and I should have. I didn't specifically say it. So like my assumption is that you get Poku starting at the 5. That does not have to happen because even though they're missing Robinson Earl and they're missing Baisley, they have Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams up from the G League. They have Omarori up from the G League. Like they have Muscala. This team just has like 9 centers on their roster. So like they still can mess with Pokusevski's minutes. It's just that it's a little bit less likely with both of those guys out.
Agreed. On to the second to last game of the night, Portland taking on Dallas, and Dame Lillard has been balling out all the way up to a 10-3 price tag, $9,700 on FanDuel. I've been consistently over the field on Dame, and now he's priced at a point where I think he's priced appropriately / too expensive, where we've touched on some cheaper point guards that have similar upsides like Dame tonight. $39 on Yahoo seems like a solid option to go to. The rest of the team is getting some ownership, that being guys like Josh Hart, Jeremy Grant, I believe, is getting some ownership. Josh Hart and Jeremy Grant getting north of 20% right now. So is Jeremy Grant at $6,900 on FanDuel. A lot of ownership over there. Anthony Simons all the way now at $7,400 on FanDuel seems like a solid option to take advantage of. I completely misread it. That's our night ownership over there. So none of these guys are getting that much ownership. So these guys look like tournament options only. Not that I'm that excited to go to any one of these guys. Simons, Nurk, and Lillard all have tournament upside. Grant has come down to earth since he was balling out. But give me your quick thoughts on Portland.
Possibly the most unappealing team on the slate, going up against a very slow Dallas team. It goes without saying, Damian Lillard can break a slate and be somebody you have to have. Nurkic certainly has a high ceiling at 7,200. But the thing that keeps me from getting to them, it's kind of what I was saying with Kevin Durant on DraftKings at 10-9. You know, Dame at 10-3, he looks like he's Dame. He's good. If you play him in tournaments at low ownership, fine. But I just prefer Harden at that price range. I prefer SGA. I prefer Trae Young. And then there's also all these 8K guys that aren't getting much ownership that you can go to. It's the kind of spot where, like, if this were a smaller slate, I'd be really interested in going to Dame because you would probably be getting more ownership going to like those 8K guys before it went to Dame. But here it's just like I can get a 5% owned really good guy, really high upside guy at 5K, or I can get a 1% owned Dame at 10K. It doesn't really make that much of a difference when, within the context of a lineup. So it's just tough for me to get there. Similarly with Nurk, he looks okay, and he certainly has a ceiling. I just prefer Jared Allen at low ownership. I prefer Miles Turner at low ownership. I prefer Gobert at low ownership if he plays. So it's just a really, really, really difficult team for me to get to.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Fine night slate options for sure, but nothing on the main slate right now. But on the Dallas side of things, Luka Doncic, Christian Wood, and Tim Hardaway Jr. are the guys who are getting projected, the 3 highest owned guys over there in DraftKings. While it's a little different on FanDuel, as Luka Doncic and Christian Wood are the 2 guys over there who are getting a lot. Christian Wood's projected to nearly north of 30% right now. Luka and Christian Wood, are we getting to these guys tonight? Christian Wood at that price tag, I think I certainly will. But Luka Doncic is very, very expensive, 12.3 and 12K. He can certainly burn you, and there might be enough value to get him in there and jam him in there. But talk to me about Luka and Christian Wood because of their respective ownerships.
Yeah, so Christian Wood's very, very, very easy to get to, and I think I'll be there. This morning on the show with Greg, I was a little bit lower on Wood than I am now, just because now I've had time to actually go through and like map out Dallas's minutes, and it's just really hard to not find minutes for Christian Wood. I'm assuming he comes off the bench again today. He did start the second half last game. We've seen that happen before, and then he goes right back to the bench. I expect him to come off the bench. If he starts, you can give him more minutes, but even off the bench, like I think he plays around 30 minutes here. He played 16 minutes in the first half last game. You don't have Maxi Kleber, and that just takes 26 minutes out of the front court rotation. So I think Wood is going to play a lot. He's 6K, ridiculously cheap price tag for him. I'm having trouble finding ways to get away from Christian Wood here. The only sort of argument against him would be that there are so many other good center plays, but this is why those centers like Jared Allen and Miles Turner are so low owned. You have Onyeka Okongwu, clear, very good value. You have Christian Wood, clear, very good value. You can only roster 2 of them. So that's why these other guys aren't getting more ownership at center. But I do think Christian Wood looks like a great option. Luka looks fantastic if you can get there. You are getting a bit of a condensed rotation from Dallas. as well. So you could see even more minutes from Luka than usual. Good spot. Obviously, he does everything when he's out there. It's just that right now we don't have a ton of ownership, and we do have so many good 8 to 10K guards that it makes it kind of tough to get to Luka. And also, when you do get to Luka, you're going to have a very similar lineup typically to other people that are playing Luka, because that's where people are using Kevin Love. That's where people are using Lamar Stevens. So that's kind of problematic as well. But obviously, if you get to a lineup that you like with Luka, that's great. I do think Spencer Dinwiddie and Tim Hardaway Jr. are kind of interesting here as well. Hardaway coming in at 5K does have guard and forward eligibility on DraftKings, which is great. I think you could get a couple extra minutes from him as well as a result of Maxey being out, just kind of having a trickle-down effect. Same goes for Spencer Dinwiddie at 6,700. He typically averages around 32 minutes. I think you could get a couple more here. So not anything close to a priority, but as relatively low-owned guys, I do think Dinwiddie and Hardaway have some interest as well.
Yeah, no, I think there's some solid tournament options to take on Dallas side of things. And also, I think taking a look at the next game, because we only got a few minutes left, the Lakers taking on Denver. I believe the Lakers are 1.5-point dogs. Sorry, yeah. We'll start on the Denver side of things. I miswrote that. So the Denver side of things, they're 1.5-point favorites in LA tonight. It's Jokic. Jokic was a monster. They continue to be out without Michael Porter Jr. Jamal Murray looks great at 7K, 7,200 on FanDuel. Jokic is expensive, 12-2 and 11-9, but man, he has been balled out last game out. Aaron Gordon's getting some ownership, not really. Bones Highland's been very efficient in the minutes he played last time out. It's Jamal Murray, and then it's like a tier below for guys like Jokic and Highland for me, maybe. Jokic obviously deserves all the recognition because he can certainly ball out, as we know, over and over again, can put up an 80 spot. But seems less likely in a matchup like this. But talk to me about Jokic, Murray, and the rest of this Denver team.
Yeah, so Murray's the guy pulling the most ownership here, and I think he should be. It's very similar to Jalen Brunson for me, where he's just a 7K guy that projects in the mid-30s from a fantasy standpoint, should play 32, 33 minutes in a good spot against the Lakers. You've also seen increased production from him in the games without Michael Porter Jr. That could be in part because you're just getting further into the season and Murray is getting healthier, but also, taking Michael Porter Jr. out and replacing him with Bruce Brown does open up some usage as well. So I think Jamal Murray looks good. I understand why he's getting the most ownership. I have interest in Aaron Gordon and Bones Highland as well. Highland playing, basically the sixth man role off the bench. When he plays well, he plays more minutes, which is really, really appealing from a DFS standpoint, because if he's playing poorly and you get that 22-minute game, you weren't going to win with that lineup anyway because he wasn't playing well. But when he is playing well, they can leave him out there. He can play more minutes in place of either Brown or KCP. And it is obviously great for DFS. So have some interest in him at only 5,400. And then Aaron Gordon has also played better without Michael Porter Jr. It's finally clicked for him how good he can be offensively, and he's figured it out. And then obviously also he's a pretty good rebounder as well. So Murray, Gordon, Highland, I think all look like pretty good options. Jokic clearly is the best option from the team in terms of everything except for being able to actually put him in your lineup. The problem is just, it's the opportunity cost of the position. We've talked about Christian Wood looking like a really difficult play to get away from. We've talked about Okongwu looking like a really difficult play to get away from. And then you have those other mid-range guys that are good. You have Luka all the way at the top. Embiid's here as well. It's just Jokic is great. It's a good spot for him. I love getting to Jokic here if you can, but it's really difficult. And I think I would also get to Luka before I get to Jokic.
Yeah, no, I think it's really difficult to get to Jokic. There's not enough surplus value yet, but maybe that'll open up by the time his game starts. But we'll go ahead and wrap up with the Lakers side of things. And last game, Anthony Davis, LeBron James were both outstanding. 11-2 for AD, 11-8 over there on FanDuel. LeBron comes in sub 10K, 9,800. On DraftKings, 10-6 on FanDuel seems expensive there. But Russell Westbrook balled out in his, 30 minutes of play. He almost put up, I believe, 50 fantasy points. And I don't think that's likely. It seems tough to go there in any sort of confidence. It's really AD and LeBron for me. I was getting to Dennis Schroeder last time the Lakers were on the slate. I'm very skeptical. He is sub 4K on DK, kind of priced out for me on FanDuel at $4,800. But LeBron and AD have a lot of tournament appeal to me. They usually do. especially Anthony Davis, even at this elevated price tag. I'll be willing to take some chances with AD. Wrap up the Lakers for us.
LeBron's the only thing I'm really interested in on DraftKings. Small forward, power forward, 9,800. Mentioned the opportunity cost of the forward positions not being as high. I think that's typically where people are going to pay down, but getting to a $9,800 LeBron is appealing if you can. Should play 35, 36 minutes. Anthony Davis being center only at 11-2 just is really difficult because if I somehow am getting to that price range, I would rather go to Embiid or rather go to Jokic if I can. Davis clearly has been great, but it's just going to be really, really tough for me to get him into lineups, I think. I don't anticipate getting to much of the Lakers, but if I do, LeBron's probably the guy.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for breaking that down, Adam. It was another fun Friday show. If everyone can hit that like button before we pass this on to Live Before a Lock, hit that subscribe button as well. And we'll catch you next time. Have a good night and good luck, everybody.
All right, Stokastic, here we go. Or should I say aloha? It is your old pal EMac back from 2 weeks of vacation, joined by Greg Ehrenberg. I get the call up to the big show on a Friday here. They couldn't find anybody else. I mean, I was the first person they called, I'm sure. Greg, what's going on? It's been like 2 weeks since I've seen you. I did listen to one show that you and Eric were doing. I caught you guys last night, and then I caught one show while I was in Hawaii when I was flying between the islands. Somehow it allowed me to enter DFS contests. So thumbs up there. It's a 5-hour difference. No DFS. It was old school for me. I didn't even look at the box scores till the next day. It was kind of interesting, Greg, but I'm back. I'm in the swing of things. How did things happen? Has the NBA been nice and normal over the last 2 weeks?
Yeah. So, by the way, not just you. So, two of my friends I haven't seen for a while, you and Tyler, and it's different because EMac, when you're of a certain age where people don't see you for a while, it becomes concerning. Just like, oh, what happened to EMac? It's been a while. And then I don't see Tyler for a couple weeks. Like, oh, he finally went crazy. We saw this coming. So it's different. You don't see people for a couple of weeks. They enter back into your lives. And yeah, we've got EMac back from his Hawaii vacation. We've got Tyler back from wherever the hell he was. He just didn't have internet for whatever reason. Texas, they just stopped giving him internet. They ran out for a little while, but now he's back. There's still no lights there, but he's got internet.
Yeah, it was a scary story he told us about. He had to go hardcore on his internet provider. So more details later, or breaking news at 11 if it goes out again. So
there's some very funny comments about you in the YouTube chat.
Fire them up. I'm still opening all the windows here.
This is what Malukar is recommending. You get Life Alert, and then we've got there was one other one in here. I want to make sure that I give credit to the correct person. Oh, here it was. Sotek said it was a Silver Alert. So here we go. We've got EMac back. He's found his way back to the show. We've got Live Before Lock to do today. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. A lot of moving parts tonight. We're starting to see some of the news trickle in. I think on our production meeting, Greg, I think we'll hit on some of the high-end plays and then start towards the value that we do know about. And then, of course, be interrupted by other news. We have 10 games on the slate tonight. 8 games are tipping off in the first hour. There's, I think, 2. What is the breakdown? 2 at 7, 4 at 7:30. We are staying on till 7:30. Of course, we are brought to you by No House Advantage. If you guys want to get in on the fun over there, we'll talk about them throughout this show. But of course, you can go in through the link that is in the description below us here. Sign up through that link and you'll get a $50 deposit match, up to $50, that is, on your first deposit if you come in through our link. Plus, it gives them a little hat tip that they says, oh yeah, this Stokastic sponsorship working out for us. We're bringing in some new peeps. So enjoy that tonight. They have a $20,000 NBA contest. There is $10,000 up top. That is their peer versus peer contest. And then that locks at 7. But we can also talk about the versus the house. This is their prop betting or prop wagering from a DFS site. So for those of you that are in states that are not enlightened enough to collect that extra tax revenue from DFS or from gambling, you can get your DFS itch scratched there and your sports wagering itch taken care of. We're also brought to you by BetMGM. We'll talk a little bit about them, that you can get 2 free months via them if you come in through our link below us here, as well as up to $1,000 risk-free back. More on that later. Greg, looking at the tippy top here, we of course have Luka Doncic in what is technically a pace-up spot for Dallas. However, this just in, Portland over their last 10 games, bottom 6 team in pace, something that seems to be a little surprising for some people. I'm not really excited about him. I have Jokic as my favorite play. Does 2 things for us. One, take him and somebody else from the Lakers Denver game, and you can have ultimate late swap flexibility, at least up until those 8 o'clock games. I don't think I want to go away from Jokic, but I'm willing to put my center spot in play there. And then you've got Joel Embiid. I still give a little tip over there to Jokic over Embiid, though both of them have had comparable stats this season. Embiid gets a little more in the minutes, but Jokic averaging 1.7 fantasy points per minute, behind only last year. He's the 2-time reigning NBA MVP here. Where are you seeing the top of the list here, or do you have somebody else in the primetime players? And then we'll get into the plethora of value.
Sure. So when we're talking about some of the pay up options, I'm not really going all the way up to the top because there are some players who are kind of like the secondary DFS stars that I just think are underpriced today. A couple ones that stand out the most, one being Trae Young, just because there's so many guys out for the Atlanta Hawks right now. And you look at the Atlanta injury report. Now, it's nothing like the Miami Heat injury report. The Heat just injury report for tomorrow came out, and they listed every single player on the roster on the injury report, all 16 of them, which, so not quite that crazy. But in terms of key players that are out for the Hawks right now, John Collins is out, Clint Capella is out, and DeJounte Murray is out. Now, when you take all 3 of these players off the court this year, Trae Young has a 41% usage rate. And I know that he's had some struggles as of late, but that almost plays into our favor because his price has come down to a certain point here right now on FanDuel and DraftKings, where we've seen him be more expensive than where he is currently at with this entire team healthy. So I'm looking at guys like Trae Young, LaMelo Ball on the other side of this game. I really like the correlation of getting them in lineups together. As my 2 favorite pay-up options, Trae Young at 10K is 27% owned on DraftKings, so a little popular, but nothing too crazy. And then same thing on FanDuel. He's $9,800, too cheap for Trae Young, who was, like 10.5 not that long ago on FanDuel with DeJounte Murray Clint Capella and John Collins active. And he's 29% owned, which is also a fairly modest ownership when you consider all the usage I expect him to get and the good matchup against the Charlotte Hornets. And now on the other side, when it comes to LaMelo Ball, he's also just woefully underpriced. 8K over on FanDuel. On DraftKings, LaMelo Ball also 8K. Ownership right in the mid 20% range. And also, he's going to benefit from all the guys that are out from the Hawks. It's an easier defensive matchup for him. But at the same time, too, he's priced down for missing games. And the minutes restriction they said that he had last game, total bullshit. Doesn't even exist. He comes back, has a minutes restriction, plays 34 minutes in regulation, but also fouled out in that game. So we could have been seeing him first game back playing 37, 38 minutes. So the short answer to your question that I gave a long-winded response to, the pay-up options are getting to the most today are Trae Young and LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, that was sort of like the screw you, EMac. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about, maneuver the goalposts just a little bit to get to these secondary options that are now the pay-up options, which I think is a decent point that you made there. The points per dollar, it's going to be a little screwy tonight. We should see enough other additional value to pop up to get us to one of those top 3 players that I mentioned, but they're not going to be the end-all be-all. And as we saw with last night's slate, even though there was plenty of ways to get up to Giannis, it turned out that Zion was really where you wanted to go. At least I was playing a lot on FanDuel or Yahoo last night. So that I did notice that stand out. So your mileage may vary. This is why we have all these different slates, all these different games, play on multiple sites, take advantages of all these things. And oh, by the way, we have, I'll have to pull up the sheet. We have just over 100 days of regular season NBA left, Greg. And we're already full in tank mode. I mean, entire teams are sitting at this point. It's wild, and still winning and getting fined for it.
But I don't think these teams are tanking. It's just stupid injury reports. Like the Heat aren't tanking. They just listed all 16 players on the injury report because they like doing bullshit. It's not, the Hawks aren't tanking. John Collins, Clint Capella, DeJounte Murray, they're all actually hurt. So there's a lot of injuries, which happens, but I don't really think we've actually seen very much tanking. I think teams have largely competed this year, especially teams we thought were going to be tanking, the Pacers, the Oklahoma City Thunder. They really have competed this year. And there's a ton of talent in the NBA. There's also just a lot of players that are injured at the moment.
All right. So here's a good one. We got this in the premium basketball Discord here. Of course, by the way, below us in the link here, you can get 3 days of all access Stokastic NBA. If you go in and check that out, that's a pretty good deal there. If you have not yet been a subscriber, this deal is there for you. You pick that now and you're going to get a whole bunch of action here. You're going to get the 3 solid slates, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You get the NBA projections, NBA ownership, the 1v1 tool, the lineup generator, which has some more bells and whistles added to it. Plus you get into Stokastic Discord here and you can pester Greg. And apparently your cohort, Eric Lindquist, is taking a Twitter hiatus through the end of the year. What does that last? 2 minutes after tip-off tonight?
Sorry, what was that?
So Lindquist is banning himself from Twitter. What happened last night?
Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he said he's done with Twitter through the end of the year. That was the last post.
All right, so I didn't see this most recent one because he's very exhausting to keep up with. But he quits Twitter 3 times a week. Like he quits Twitter all the time. Then he comes back. So I don't know.
So this is like legalized leaving Discord every hour on the hour.
I couldn't even
love you, Alex. Love you.
I couldn't even tell you what it is. Eric's very, very difficult to keep up with. A lot of drama.
Good times. All righty. So anyway, the Discord question here is, what would you like to do with the high popularity of Okongwu here? And would you pivot to somebody on his own team as direct leverage, or would you rather go with a different player at this point?
Oh, it looks like Eric's calling me on in the YouTube chat. I see him saying my name.
That's right. Jesus, what's going on, Jesus?
Yeah, so Eric is listening right now. Is this true, Eric? Have you quit Twitter? Is this something that happened?
The people need to know. And he can't. It's Bogdanovich versus Bogdanovich night. He's got to have props on both sides of this.
Oh, I already see he's starting to mute people and hide them in oh my God. He's not even on the show and he's showing up to ban people. He's banned himself. He's banned other people. Oh my God.
This is quality.
So it's pretty hard to get. By the way, it's pretty hard to get away from Okongwu, despite him being popular, because I get that he's picking up a lot of ownership today, especially DraftKings. He is 68% owned. On FanDuel, he is 70% owned. So I think you can make a case to be underweight to the field to him in large field tournaments. But I don't think that you should be pivoting off him entirely. And the players that JEW has suggested here, Frank Kaminsky, Jalen Johnson, if I had to pick one, I'd prefer Kaminsky. I am not playing him, though. The issue with Jalen Johnson is there's a lot of value today, and he's just not cheap enough. He's $5,100 over on FanDuel. Nobody's playing him, but I think that's justified. And then over on DraftKings, he's $4,500. If you're going to get away from Okongwu, I think the more sensible way to do it would just be play a different value option somewhere else, because I don't really think anything else here is all that appealing. If you wanted to make a case for Kaminsky and say maybe Okongwu gets hurt or gets into foul trouble, sure, there's a path to that. But to me, I think Okongwu overall is a good piece of chalk, but there are other value plays you could get to. I wouldn't be looking to play Jalen Johnson for sure.
All right. We got a super chat or a membership chat here from a friend of the program, Melissa Harvey. She's been a member for 6 months, a lot longer behind the scenes on the Stokastic Discord, but YouTube member for 6 months. She says, hey, what are the cash game locks? I know she plays over on DraftKings. So what do you got for DraftKings locks? And then you can round out FanDuel as well.
All right. So locks.
And until the next wave of news changes. Yeah. I saw this happen to you on last night's show for a couple of super chats. So this is invoking breaking news at this point.
Yeah. So, I mean, the players that I would say, did she specify like cash game or anything like that?
Cash game DK.
Okay. So cash game DK. Here are the players that I think you should absolutely be playing for cash games on DraftKings. No questions asked. Okongwu, Okongwu's going to be like 90% owned in cash games. You're playing him in cash. I think Trae Young, you should be playing him in cash. LaMelo Ball, you should be playing him in cash. Christian Wood is another player that I think you should be playing in cash today. I think he's potentially going to start today. Started the second half of last game. Maxi Kleber is out. It's really weird what happens with his playing time from time to time. But with Kleber out, I would say that he's somebody you should be playing in cash. That would take up 2 center spots there. So 1 in center, 1 in the utility. Should be Okongwu in center, Christian Wood in utility. But to round it up there, Okongwu, Christian Wood, Trae Young, LaMelo Ball. I'd say those are players you should definitely be building your cash game lineup around.
What do you have for minutes on Trae Young tonight in your estimation? 4
minutes?
Yeah, I'm assuming you still do minutes. You still do your own projections, right? Are you back to?
Yeah, no. So I think Trae Young plays close to 40 minutes today.
Okay, so we're projecting him for 35.8 and 53.3 fantasy points. So you're getting? God, probably close to 60 for him then.
So no. So I think so. Here's his minutes from the last 3 games. Trae Young played 39 minutes, 43, 37, and with the players out for them right now, I don't think that you should actually go out and say like, oh, he plays 40 minutes today. But I do think 35 is a little light on a projection from him. So if you look at the most recent games for Trae Young, 39 minutes, 43, 37, 30, that was in a blowout there. They lost to the Knicks by 24 points in that game. 37 minutes, 36 minutes. That was another blowout. 34 minutes, 38 minutes, 38 minutes. So I think that 38 is a pretty reasonable expectation for Trae Young today with the upside to play 40.
Okay. That is fair enough. Michael McKinney with the $2 super chat says, hey, yo, give me the 5 best FanDuel cash plays. Thanks, my guys.
All right. So same. It's going to be a lot of the same players. One thing I'm going to add in for FanDuel, though, is Kyle Anderson. But still, I think Trae Young should be played in FanDuel cash. I think that LaMelo Ball should be played in FanDuel cash. I think Christian Wood should. I think Okongwu should as well. In tournaments, I think Kyle Anderson is going over-owned on FanDuel, projected for nearly 60% ownership. But he's still somebody that's a very good value play. So while I think that he's a little bit too popular in tournaments, he should be rostered in cash games. So a lot of the same players, like I said, for DraftKings are going to apply to a FanDuel, but I really do think just because Kyle Anderson is so popular on FanDuel, he should be played in cash games at least.
All right. Funny enough, Ayo Dosunmu is in tonight. I believe we're getting news that Gary Trent is out with a quad. Really not going to move them. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the last Raptors game, and Adam and I talked about this morning on the strategy show. I was so confused by Gary Trent's minutes. They made no sense to me because if we know how Nick Nurse runs his rotations, he does not give a fuck about his players. He's like, oh, cool, we're shorthanded. There's 48 minutes in the game. My starters will play 50 minutes. It doesn't even make sense. They play as many minutes as possible and sometimes even beyond. And so we had OG Anunoby out for the Raptors last game, and you just assume like, okay, Gary Trent, who by the way, the game before had played 44 minutes, you just think this guy's going to play an insane amount of minutes. And he only played 25, which I believe is the least he played the entire season other than one other game where he got hurt. So makes sense that he's dealing with an injury. He wasn't on the injury report before, but this is something that's going to shake up the Raptors, especially because OG Anunoby is already out.
All right. Hat tip here to producer Tyler, best producer in the business, named Tyler Zander, who looks like the Unabomber that can also do 9 different accents, most of them from the United Kingdom. King Effin Dash, $5 super chat, says, give me 3 sub $4,000 value plays on FanDuel. The caveat, both guards and small forward. This is great.
Okay, wait. I need to give me the rules again. Give me the
FanDuel,
rules.
sub 4,000, both guard spots and small forward.
Okay, so FanDuel.
That's worthy of a $5 super chat. We're making good. You can see the wheels really starting to turn here.
He's going to get his money worth on this one. So I am going to because I'm going to. This is going to take me a second to look for this to find the answer. Can you move on to the next question and then I'll circle back to this?
Absolutely. So we're looking at Liker says, what is our best contrarian pay up spot today? For me, it appears to be Nikola Jokic. At this point, we've already mentioned several key center options here. You are giving up that spot, but as I sort of mentioned at the top, why he's kind of my main guy, he should still be in single digits for popularity. Plus, it does give you a little bit of flexibility for that second game, just in case anything wild happens. For me, he will probably be in at least 40% of my lineups. I'm going to try to play 100 on DK tonight. So and he'll be in 100% likely of my one lineup on Yahoo. That one may vary. It gets a little tricky there at the top with players when they get over $55. We'll have to see what $10 options pop there on Yahoo. But for me, it's going to be Jokic. The main reasons being Michael Porter Jr. is out. We do have Aaron Gordon, who's helped pick it up as a secondary scorer. You've of course got Bones Highland and Jamal Murray helping handle some of the assist duties. But the thing that we are seeing from Jokic is he's averaging 1.7 fantasy points per minute. That's second best of his career, behind only last season's 1.83. That's DraftKings points per minute there. So he is getting the double-double and the triple-double bonus on there. But he's such a good play. Lakers really don't have the interior defense to take care of him. And guys, it's not going to be Anthony Davis. He doesn't even want to play center, let alone play defense. He's good block. He's good help side block, but he's not the same guy he was 5 years ago in New Orleans.
Yeah. So I have one that I'm surprised that Luka Doncic isn't more popular on FanDuel. So this is going to apply to both FanDuel and DraftKings as we've got more value opening up, and I'm going to have to make some adjustments for the Raptors news in a second. But Luka is 12,000 on FanDuel. So his price has come down relative to some of the heights that we've seen it at. He's point guard and shooting guard eligible on FanDuel, projected for 14% ownership. And we do have a lot of value in the backcourt today. So where I said before, I think the best overall pay-up options on the slate are Trae Young and LaMelo Ball. Well, I think that's the case. Luka is going a little bit under-owned considering all the value we have in the front court and how easy it is to pay up at the guard spots. Luka, 12-3 on DraftKings, projected for sub 10% ownership. Considering that we've got guys like Okongwu to play in the front court that are really cheap and make it easier to spend up for guards, I think Luka is going a little bit overlooked.
All right. Are you back on the sub 4K FanDuel?
Yes. So once again, just so the people can remember and know what we're talking about, the question is what?
Is give me the best plays under $4,000, shooting guard, point guard, small forward.
Okay. So starting at point guard, right? Because I assume that he wants position by position for the best cheap plays at each spot. And by the way, the answer largely is none of them, right? Like I don't think there's that many good cheap plays that you want to be getting to today. But TJ McConnell, FanDuel at $3,800, don't like it, but that's the one that ended up being the one that I have the most often sub 4K in the run of lineups that I've done. Shooting guard McConnell also has shooting guard eligibility. And I don't even know that I could make a case for another cheap guard over on FanDuel. I think for sub 4K at least, maybe you can make a case that Malachi Flynn is going to play expanded minutes now that Gary Trent is out, but I also just do not find that price range to be particularly appealing at the shooting guard spot over on FanDuel. Small forward, the best option for sub 4K, that ends up being for me Eugene Omori from the Oklahoma City Thunder, just because they're so shorthanded. And with Baisley also getting rolled out earlier, once again, not a player I like getting to. I think all of these are bad options, but because these are the parameters he gave me and I have to answer somebody, I'm going to say Omori just from the standpoint of OKC is shorthanded. I have no clue who the minutes are going to, but it could potentially be him.
How do you feel about Anthony Lamb? We, of course, have no Steph Curry is going to be out for a month with the left shoulder subluxation. No Wiggins tonight. No, who is the other one we're missing? Why am I blanking on that? No, did Draymond end up being in? Let me check.
Yeah, so Draymond's
out. Klay Thompson questionable.
Yeah. So we're waiting on Clay news, and that is going to be something that can make a difference. As of now, no interest in Anthony Lamb. If Clay is out, the Warriors do weird shit with their starting lineup all the time. Like it's really hard to guess. You know, how many times it's been like you're fairly confident you know who's going to start for the Warriors, and it's like but Ty Jerome is starting today after not being in the rotation for a couple days.
That was the one show I caught was where I think it might have been you and Adam where you're saying, oh, it's going to be two of these four players. And then none of those four started the last time they met about a week ago.
I think so. I'm trying to remember who was out that night for the Warriors. It was one of those days where they were resting, a bunch of dudes. And Adam and I were trying to guess the starting lineup. I gave one guess. Adam gave two guesses. And he's like, I don't know what it is, but I'm pretty confident it's going to be one of these. And neither of us were remotely close. It was just a total random group of five players that I don't even think had played together the entire season to that point. So it's hard to know. I will say if Clay is ruled out, depending who starts, I think like if Anthony Lamb ends up starting, I think you could definitely make a case for him as a value play, but you would need Clay out and you need to know what the starting lineup is.
Alrighty. Now the Claw also asking the best utility play under 4,800 on DK. So a little more flexibility there for us.
This is also going to be easier. By the way, FanDuel, when we're being asked about punt plays before, you really don't need to punt that often on FanDuel. The way the pricing is pretty soft, like you're going to find a lot of good plays that are going to be priced in like the 5K-ish range over on FanDuel, especially on a slate of this size. There isn't really that much of a need to go to like some of those $3,500 players or stuff like that, like we were asked in that super chat before. But the question, what was the 4,800 was the
4,800 or below. 4,800 or below on DK utility. So okay. No.
So Okongwu, no, but I assume you probably already have Okongwu in your lineup, or else he would be the answer. The next guy, 4,800 or below. I wish we could feel better about Pokusevski's minutes today, but he's also chalky. There's a pretty good chance you have him in your lineup. If I'm going to say somebody a little bit more contrarian, who I also think could serve as a pivot and leverage play off of Pokusevski, Jalen Williams, who we've seen have some upside, rookie for the, and by the way, this is Jalen Williams spelled Jalen from the Thunder, because as if their team and their rotations and their lineups weren't confusing enough, they have two different Jalen Williamses and they spell their name differently. So the Jalen Williams who spells his name Jalen, I think he's a pretty good pivot off of Pokusevski today.
At least that's more of a common pairing of names than Donyell Marshall and Donnie Marshall, who played for Connecticut, University of Connecticut at the same time, way back in the day. Okay, old guy, stop talking.
No, I think, I mean, Donyell, that's even my time, Donyell Marshall.
Okay,
yeah,
not too shabby.
Jorge
Conley says, who will your top three players be that you, who will your top three players be that you are over the field on that are low owned? Sure. And who are you avoiding of the three chalky players? So he's looking for your leverage options in both directions.
Okay. So
I think he plays DK if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so in terms of low owned players that I'm overweight to, one that I really do like is Kevin Love, and I get that he's dealing with the hand injury, finger injury, and somebody mentioned that earlier in the day that when Adam and I were talking about the low minutes for Kevin Love, he messaged us and said that there's been this situation with Kevin Love where he's had the brace, he has the hand injury. I get that, but he is so cheap now. $3,600 for Kevin Love on DraftKings while people are also not playing him. I don't know what his minutes are going to be. It's been all over the place lately, and I'm sure it's correlated to his hand injury. But if you just get 20 minutes out of Kevin Love, there's a pretty good chance you're getting 25 or so fantasy points out of him. People aren't playing him because of some of his recent outings, but you are not going to find Kevin Love cheaper than $3,600 on a lot of slates. So I think that's a really good low-owned play to get to. I mentioned Jalen Williams before. That's another one that I think serves a pretty good pivot off of Pokashevsky. As for the chalk plays, there's none of them that I'm avoiding entirely. I think Kyle Anderson's going a little bit overowned on both DraftKings and FanDuel, but there's nobody that I look at that's popular and think that they're like not playable or anything like that. The ones I think are a little bit too popular are Kyle Anderson and DeAndre Hunter.
All right. Well, thank God we're getting Saturday news feathered in here. It does look like we have Kevin Huerter is playing. That's going to tighten up the wings a little bit there on Sacramento. Tobias Harris is questionable now with back pain. Would it be a shock to see him get the night off?
Honestly, at this point, I just assume that he's not going to be playing. If you look at the Warriors, the state of their team, and the guys that are on the injury report, I don't even know that Tobias Harris actually has any kind of injury as much as the Sixers are like, all right, let's give this guy the night off because they're getting D'Anthony Melton back from an injury. Tobias Harris is the one guy who hasn't missed time for this team. Embiid has missed games this year. Harden has missed games. I'm going to assume Tobias Harris will not play given that news.
Yeah. And just for perspective, Philadelphia does not play again until Sunday. So, or pardon me, Monday. They have the whole weekend off after tonight. So that just, I was expecting them to be on a back-to-back or something, but no, it's not. So it makes sense, given the long weekend, since he's the one guy that hasn't missed it. Here's a question from Race Fan Super Chat, says Anthony Edwards or Randall on DraftKings. We're seeing Randall get a lot more minutes now with Obi Toppin out. Anthony Edwards, of course, having to shoulder the load. We don't know anything yet about D'Angelo Russell or Rudy Gobert. If they're both in, how would you answer that question? I think if they're both out, then it's going to be Anthony Edwards, right?
It is. So it was Anthony Edwards versus
Randall? Julius Randle.
If it's just for fantasy points and there's no other considerations, Anthony Edwards, but also especially because you get the potential of no Rudy Gobert, no D'Angelo Russell. If they're both out, that would also help Edwards, which I know you alluded to there, EMac. But yeah, I'm going to be Edwards there.
All right. Chad is saying Rudy is out. I haven't gotten that news officially yet, but that, of course, brings Naz Reid into play, further weakening my recommendation of Nikola Jokic. However, making him more unique. You were asking for unique. Maybe I'll dip down to 30% instead of the 40% on DK, but I still like Jokic. We do have Bogdanovic, the Atlanta version, starting. He's come off the bench for every game this season. I want to say he's averaged around 30 minutes per game over his last three. We did like him off the bench. They're running so thin there in Atlanta that they need him. There we go. D'Angelo Russell still questionable. Is going to be a game time decision, but officially Rudy Gobert is out. And for those of you in chat, I always appreciate you guys putting stuff in there. I just for the people that are listening and maybe not looking at chat and doing multiple things in their lineups, we just don't like to officially say something until we get it from NewsGod or one of our approved sites here. But thank you for putting that into chat here. Mostly expected. Trent Forrest is starting. That's the other wrinkle. I guess that's not a wrinkle. Amongst all their other younger guys, I really don't care for Trent Forrest. Tonight's slate's too big, I think, to go there. What are your thoughts about some of the Atlanta plays and how are you maneuvering with Naz Reid, since that's our latest piece of news?
Yeah, so, three guys that I'm really getting to a lot from Atlanta are Trae Young, Onyeka Okongwu, and Bogdan Bogdanovic. Trent Forrest, to me, is not really a necessary piece on this slate. I think there's better value options. The other thing too is that Trent Forrest is now $4,700 over on FanDuel. So, this isn't like we're playing a cheap version of Trent Forrest, and he's been priced up to $4,100 on DraftKings. I'd rather play guys that are cheaper that I project better, or just, pay up a little bit here in the mid-range. But to me, I think the guys on the Hawks to get to, Trae Young, Onyeka Okongwu, Bogdan Bogdanovic. I don't think DeAndre Hunter projects poorly, but I do think he's over-owned.
All right. I see chat calling for updated projections. They're working on them. I promise you. Every time these things go through, we got to rerun ownerships. We got to rerun regular projections, and then it takes time for those two things to join up there on the boom bust page. So not to fear, we have 25 minutes before lock. There are two games at 7:00. We're staying on until 7:30. We again are brought to you by No House Advantage here. I want to point out that there's a fair amount of overlay in their main contest. This is their gamers versus gamers. So this is like the GPPs we're used to seeing. 543 out of 1,200 in there right now. Be surprised to see if that goes off more than 70% full. Key thing over there, you're picking 10 player props from those that they have listed. Those props are static. Those are static, similar to salaries on the other sites. They don't move these for news. That allows all of us to see the same thing. We're all reacting to the same stuff, and it's gamer versus gamer, peer versus peer. You pick the 10 questions, put them in confidence rankings 10 through 1. You go over or under on the player proposition, and then if you are correct, those are your points. Those points add up. That's what scores you against the rest of the gamers. So a lot of fun over there. Come in through the link below us here, and you can get a $50 deposit match. That's in the link below us here in the YouTube description. Their other format they have there over there is versus the house. So this is their player props. Those are dynamic, so they will move. We'll talk a little bit about more after the main lock at 7:00. We'll hit you guys up with a few of the No House Advantage versus the house picks. Was waiting to see. I saw what it was the news for chat. Do you want to quickly say the claw again? Best utility for 48 and 100 and under on DK. Has that changed for you?
Did he not just ask us this question?
I'm worried he's asking for an update, or he had it queued up and just now hit enter again for a second time. The claw, if you have a different question, I'll try to catch that, or producer Tyler can snag it.
Yeah, if you have a different question, because it was one that I'm almost positive he asked before for the same. By the way, Chris Middleton will not play tomorrow. I guess he's dealing with an injury. Maybe that's why he sucks so hard lately. But yeah, if you don't have to leave us another super chat, the claw, but just throw a question into chat and we will answer it. Because it does seem like you actually asked the same question twice.
Oh, he said he missed it. He said he missed it.
Okay. So let me. I'll just answer again. So, by the way, I also just reran lineups with the Toronto Raptors news with Gary Trent being out. So I am getting exposure to some of the Toronto guys that I did not think I was going to get exposure to before we started. So Toronto players that I now think look like pretty good value option. By the way, I'm going to have to run lineups again for Rudy Gobert being out. So
and again. Before
and then again. There's 22 minutes to go until lock. I'll probably end up running lineups 10 more times until then. But I think that Thad Young and Juancho Hernan Gomez both look like strong options on both FanDuel and DraftKings in the absence of Gary Trent. And also that's subject to change based on what the starting lineup is for them, which I'm not sure if that came through or not.
Why did I forget they had Juancho?
He's started in some of these spots too where they've been shorthanded. And
now that I'm not doing the Fred Van Elite fan club, I haven't been looking at the Toronto box scores as much.
Yeah, so Hernan Gomez has made 3 starts this year. In those starts, 27 minutes per game, only put up 19 fantasy points. But overall for the year, once again, not the world's greatest fantasy producer. But if you could give him 28 to 30 minutes, you're most likely looking at over 20 fantasy points. Considering his positional eligibility and his cheap price point, it does make him a good enough looking value option.
All right, I got it. Props to Todd Strong. He says right about now, EMac's going to mention Fred VanVleet. You got it. We're a little bit behind you, but yes, I was saying that as you were typing it, and now you got to hear it. So good call out there. Any thoughts on Blanton? And then I got another super chat for you.
On who?
Blanton, Dean Blanton.
Dean Blanton?
Deep cut. I'm assuming the Toronto Raptors guard.
Oh, Delano Banton.
Oh, Banton. Oh, I thought they said.
And it's okay.
Oh, they did. Like, the old guy needs better.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need reading glasses here real soon.
Yeah, that really was my dad asking me how like the ball. Yeah, that really was like my dad asking me about the Baltimore Colts. So Delano, I want to see what the starting lineup is for the Raptors. I don't think he's going to start. I think that Hernan Gomez moves into the starting lineup. So Hernan Gomez is the guy that I like there as the really cheap play. Thad Young as well. He started at center last game. If Banton starts instead of Hernan Gomez, or if it's Malachi Flynn for some reason, then it's whoever starts would be the guy I like the most. I'm assuming right now it's Hernan Gomez.
Now I want to know who the hell Dean Blanton is and why I came up with that name.
I don't know. I think he's probably he's probably a teacher in a movie from the 1970s.
Dean Blanton, basketball player. Dane Blanton, Devontae Blanton. No, I'm making stuff up. That's what it's coming down to. Now my dog wants
too much sun. Too much sun.
This is for Race Fan 22. Who projects best on DK? Let's do a combo of projection and popularity. Kuminga, Lugens Dort, or DeAndre Hunter?
Of those players, Hunter, but I also think he's a little bit too is your dog coming in?
No, she's gonna sit there and wag her tail and want me to take her out. She thinks it's time for dinner. It is. No, now she's pushing the door. She's pissed. she's been at the groomer / border for the last 19 days. Apparently dinner time is now. There. When she's down here it's at 7, but she doesn't tell time that way. So sorry, but
you didn't teach your dog how to tell time?
No, not yet. Teddy Wayman with the $10 super chat says we
didn't answer. Did we?
Oh, sorry.
I can't. I just
Kuminga, sure. Dort, Hunter. You mentioned. Do you like Hunter the best?
Okay, so of those players, I Hunter projects the best, but at the same time, I think he's a little bit over. There's your dog. I was gonna say there's a lot going on in the background of EMac there.
Yes.
We need to get like a puppy play date going. We'll get you on here with your dog. We'll get Eric with Duke on here. We could get Lofty with his dog. I don't know your dog's name or Lofty's dog's name.
Jovi and John Bond. Jovi.
Oh, you know what? I did know that because you told me it was spelled differently, and I asked why, and it was because that was what your wife wanted.
She's a girl, and blah blah blah, and that's what my wife wanted. So yes, she will be celebrating. Not my wife, my dog will be celebrating her 12th birthday in January.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy you clarified that.
All right. Speaking of clarifying, Teddy Wayman, $10 super chat just for you. Well, it's nothing to do with me, but says thank you for clarifying things for me earlier today. Won't be able to sign up due to moving, but will next week. Thanks, guys.
Nice. Yeah. He reached out to me. He had some questions about our free sign up offer, and which by the way, if you guys have not signed up yet and you want to check out stuff we have on the paywall, we have a link where you get 3 days free access. You can find that below, and Tyler could throw that into the YouTube chat. And if you guys sign up right now, here's what you get: NBA slate for tonight, tools, projections, ownership projections. But then back-to-back NFL slates. Saturday, we have an NFL main slate, and Sunday, an NFL main slate. So a lot of value if you guys take advantage of that 3-day free offer now.
Oh, nice. Sorry, with that. So that's all sports you were saying?
Yes, sir.
Very nice. Look at that. I shortchanged everybody. I said it was NBA only. It's everything. We listened to Greg. Greg's kind of my boss, technically. Nobody's the boss of me, but technically, I guess Greg is. So we'll have to see. Chat here from it says Greg's number one fan. Super chat says, "Who's my favorite player in the NBA?" Is that your mom writing in? Greg's number one fan.
Wait, I have to guess his favorite player?
No, your mom wrote in a super chat and says, "Name her favorite NBA player." Oh, you've said this before on chats.
I know at one point it was.
He might be in the starting lineup tonight for Draymond Green.
Sorry, what was that?
He might be in the lineup tonight for Draymond Green.
I mean, my mom's actual favorite player, she brings this up all the time. She really likes Greg Oden. There were some pictures of him that she really enjoyed. So for her, like all time, it's Greg Oden.
All right. Well, one show you said it was the bucket.
No. I said that was her. I said that was what the neighbors used to call her. Not her favorite.
Oh, God. I remembered it in a much more favorable light, I think. But geez, come on, Greg. Horrible. Hopefully Mrs. Ehrenberg is not watching.
I could guarantee. My parents have no clue what I do for a living. They're just that, like so for the longest time they thought I did nothing, and then I bought a house and like, okay, whatever. This seems to be working out for them. They've
Yes. Well, not only did you buy a house, you turned it into a compound for half the Ehrenberg clan. So
yeah, my parents are moving in a couple months.
Are they really? I thought they were headed down to FLA.
They are in Florida right now, but they're going to be moving in with me next year.
Gotcha. Wow, that's very exciting stuff there. All right, Seth Curry is playing tonight. Just looking to see if any other news came in. We are 15 minutes away from lock, but we are going to stay on till 7:30. Talk a little No House Advantage. We're going to talk a little Bet MGM. We're going to have some fun here. We need parent cam now, is what Sotek says. Interesting. We'll see. We'll put that under advisement. We'll put that under advisement. Let's see here. What else we got? Anything? No, but I did see when I was in Hawaii, there's a whole chain of I think they were bakery type places called Zippies. Every time I saw one, I thought of Greg or of Eric Lindquist, Zippy himself.
He's got his own stuff going too.
Yeah, pretty impressive. All right, let's go back here. We already know Bogdanovich is starting.
By the way, I should mention, I think just to doing another run of my lineups here, and for one, I'm assuming Tobias Harris is out. That makes James Harden look a little bit more favorable. I'm a little concerned about blowout in his minutes though, but he's a pay-up option that I do like getting to now and didn't really have him before. And Naz Reid is on par with Onyeka Okongwu as a really strong value play. One thing that's a little scary now is because Naz Reid and Okongwu both look so good for me. It's getting a little bit harder to get Christian Wood into lineup, so he's getting pinched a little bit.
All right, we just got another update 20 seconds ago for the player projections. Put that out there. Anything exciting here? Obviously, Naz Reid, very excited. You've been granted boss status, Greg. Congratulations. When are the EMac NFTs coming out? Probably never.
EMac NFTs?
Wooden coins. Me and Tops. We're gonna just completely misunderstand what NFTs. I still don't get Bitcoin and all of that, but whatever. Let's see. Just nothing too crazy. Do I realize how loud my mouse was? I'm sorry. Don't click the button. Is there a button I can turn my mouse scroll off on? I didn't know that. Or are you saying I should mute it before I use it?
I think it's part of the charm. I think part of the charm of doing shows with EMac is him not totally understanding technology. So I would prefer that he leaves it the same. I like to hear him click his mouse. I like to see him panic when he doesn't get his lineups up in time. I wouldn't change it.
Which is a possibility. Haven't built them yet. We still got 13 minutes. Devin Davis, $2 super chat, says favorite sub 4K punts at guard, forward, and center. Let's assume DraftKings. Devin, you can clarify if it's FanDuel. We've already mentioned that it's pretty sparse there on FanDuel at all, but so let's play it as DraftKings.
Okay, so he wants to know the favorite play sub 4K.
Yes.
At each of those positions, or
yes, basically everything.
Okay.
Just we'll call it utility, but hit at least one of a guard.
Well, here's what I'll do. Here's the player that I've projected the best at every position for sub 4K. And by the way, we're still waiting on an official starting lineup for the Raptors, aren't we? That hasn't come through yet.
I do not believe it has.
Yeah, I'm just checking because a lot of news has come through. So I'm just trying to make sure that
technology gives me hissy fits. That's actually true. True story. True story. Also technology. My wife makes me get whatever the same phone is as her because she has to fix it for me all the time. So she's like, I don't want to learn two phones. Although now she's like, you don't do anything on your phone except look at sports scores. So I have the two versions behind her on the iPhone. So she keeps getting the most current one with the best camera. And I just look at sports scores on mine. So.
That's maybe the oldest relationship thing I've ever heard is that you have to get the same phone for when your phone breaks.
Because I get pissed and angry and I'm a jinx. And so she makes me leave the house while she fixes it. It's a true story.
Sub 4K at guard. So I'll do guard, forward, and utility. Guard for me, sub 4K is Caruso, but not somebody I'm really playing. Where there's a lot. So guard generally you want to be paying up today. Forward is where you're going to be saving some money. Forward and center. Forward and center are the two spots to be saving money at. So forward for cheap, sub 4K. That is Hernan Gomez for me. I'm assuming he starts in place of Gary Trent. And then center, which is also just going to be my highest projected players. I do have Naz Reid projected better than Okongwu now. And then, well, actually, wait, I forgot. Sub 4K. Sub 4K is, because Okongwu is not sub 4K, and Naz Reid is exactly 4K. So I don't know if that's cheating or not to include Naz Reid because he's 4K.
I think we can allow it.
Naz Reid is the answer. If not Naz Reid, then Thaddeus Young.
All right. I full disclosure, on my one lineup on Yahoo, I had to go away from Jokic, Naz Reid, and Okongwu are 10 and 11 points or salary respectively. I can't top that. So that's going to take me away on that side from it. Even if I run my best Jokic lineup is coming in 7 points under the optimal. So that's a big enough difference that I'm going to let our projections take care of that for me. With those of you playing Yahoo real quick, we really like Kelly Oubre Jr., LaMelo Ball, Kyle Anderson at 20. Pascal Siakam seems to be the most expensive player coming in at 44. You can also get Trae Young in the same lineup at 43. It looks kind of like that's the mix. You have James Harden at 41. So we're not really paying up for anybody above $45. It looks like if you're only going to make one or two lineups over there. Anything surprising you at the moment? Worrying you?
Just a bunch of questions in the Discord channel. I'm just going to bang some of these out and answer them as quickly as possible. You could make sure your lineups are uploaded while I'm doing this, EMac. I'll answer these questions. Make your lineups happen. First,
well, it makes for a much worse show though. That's really...
Dominic Cubano 25. He's saying, why do projections love Malik Monk so much today? So Malik Monk should be playing more minutes because Davion Mitchell is out for the Kings. But now with that said, we have had a bunch of value open up as per usual on a 10-game NBA slate over the course of the last, 10 minutes leading into lock, and some players, Gary Trent being ruled out, Rudy Gobert being ruled out, that Malik Monk I no longer really find to be all that necessary. He is currently projected for 10% ownership over on DraftKings. FanDuel, Malik Monk is still at 27%. The 27% is a little high for me on FanDuel, just considering that we've got all these other plays that have opened up at this point. T. Lee wants to know favorite plays today for single entry. So I will rattle through my current most rostered players. Point guard, it is LaMelo Ball and Trae Young. Shooting guard for me, it is Bogdan Bogdanovic and James Harden. I'm assuming that Tobias Harris is not going to play for the 76ers today. Opens up a little bit more usage there. Small forward for me right now, Hernan Gomez and Bogdan Bogdanovic. At power forward for me, Pokashevsky right now, although that's kind of a placeholder. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up swapping off some of that later on as we get into lock and more players get rolled out. And Juancho Hernan Gomez. And then at center, Naz Reid and Onyeka Okongwu. I have them as my two favorite center options. That is, for DraftKings purposes, definitely lowering the amount of exposure that I get to Christian Wood. For FanDuel, Christian Wood is power forward eligibility, so it's a little easier to fit him into lineups. I'm not comfortable with that. I think that Christian Wood is in a really good spot, but I think the same goes for Naz Reid and Onyeka Okongwu, and they're both considerably cheaper. So those are the players I'm getting the most exposure to. And that correlates to the question we got right here. Sam Cassell Dance is asking, pair Naz Reid and Okongwu in DraftKings? Yes, that is my favorite center combination. I don't like that it gets me off Christian Wood a little bit, but if you are playing cash games today, I think Naz Reid and Okongwu should both be in that lineup, and Christian Wood is unfortunately the odd man out. So I'm going to hope Okongwu plays well. I hope Naz Reid plays well, and I hope that Christian Wood doesn't go out, start and score like 50 fantasy points, because that would not be great. Heflo is asking,
are you going over 50% on any players tonight?
Yes.
Okay. What's your highest player?
Which player?
Yeah, or just percentage wise, like 60%.
Naz Reid is in all my lineups on DraftKings.
Okay.
Yeah, I have Naz Reid projected for over 30 fantasy points. And he's 4K on DraftKings. And because the news came out so late, I think there's a chance that people don't get to him at the rate they should.
Okay.
Like he's still going to be very, very popular, but I do think there's a potential slight ownership discount because Gobert was ruled out so late in the day. Hef Love, Bogdan less attractive starting rather than bench because of usage? No, because he doesn't have a minutes restriction now at all. Not that he really had one before, but Bogdanovich is still going to be staggered to some extent with Trae Young. But I think all of the minutes that Bogdanovich was going to play without Trae Young before, he's still going to get those minutes. He's also just going to play a few additional minutes with Trae Young. So I think we're looking at a lot more minutes from Bogdanovich today. But there's no real there's no real downside to me with him starting. It just means he's going to play a couple extra minutes. Miami High Life one. Yeah, go ahead, EMac.
I was going to say, this is turning into a wild slate. It always does, but damn, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Hey, 10-game slate. That is the way it goes. Let me check.
I'm going to do a quick download and upload, and then I can take control.
Yeah, no, it's all good. We got a super chat from KS. He wants to know thoughts on Kobe White. No need to play him today. There is so much good value that I just don't think you need to play Kobe White. And the other thing too is that we have from the Chicago Bulls, if you look at their rotation right now, Ayo Dosunmu is back. Dosunmu was out last game. You are now in a spot where Kobe White has these players ahead of him in the rotation as guards. Zach LaVine, Alex Caruso, Ayo Dosunmu, and Javonte Green has been ahead of Kobe White in the rotation as well. Then you also got Goran Dragic playing minutes. It's hard to find more than like 15 or so minutes from Kobe White. No need to get to him in this kind of slate.
All right. I got my lineups in. Thank you very much, Greg. So we are cruising towards lock.
D'Angelo Russell rolled out. So you thought your lineups were done. Time to do them again.
They're good now for the 2 7:00 games. They're good now for the 2 7:00 games. I say over unders. So this is EMac's first day of NBA DFS. No, but I haven't been on a show.
He's rusty.
Except for earlier today in 18 days. So a little bit rusty.
He's rusty. We got it. We need to get some WD-40 on EMac to get the rust worked off.
Absolutely.
There was one other question we had here from Miami High Life. I actually might have answered that before, but he wants to know who my favorite value play was from the Raptors. The answer is Hernan Gomez. I think that Trae Young. I think that Thaddeus Young projects better than Hernan Gomez. Here's the issue, though. The issue is with Thad Young is that he's center eligible, and there's just way better center plays now, so it becomes Hernan Gomez.
I feel like you did that to make me feel better about myself by confusing the T Youngs, Trae and Thad.
No, I just looked down and I saw a Thad Young question and just said Trae Young. Happens to all of us. I'm not young either, EMac.
It is. What are you, 27 now? No, let me guess. I'm gonna guess honestly.
You know my age.
No, I don't. 33.
No, I'm 32. But
okay, that wasn't bad.
Yeah, we talked about this before.
We did, but you guys, when I say you guys, everybody's 10, 15, and 20 years younger than me here at Stokastic.
Not Eric.
Lepre.
Yeah, well, Lepre's like 12. Lepre, if you just looked at Lepre, it'd be hard to guess his age, though. He could be anything. But yeah, no. But I mean, Eric's in the chat. Eric's 50. So Eric's
happy birthday to Lindquist. Actually, I forgot. December 16th is his birthday. How old am I? Yeah. I will be 52 this spring.
Okay, so you're basically like 29 years with me.
Yeah, there we go. So could they hear you, or did you put yourself live?
Hear me.
Okay. Yes. Very, very good. Tyler likes that. He does it. Jordan just talks to us, and it's very confusing, disconcerting because you guys can't hear it. But yes, I will be 52, 5'2".
Yeah, Jordan is very opposed to being on shows.
Dude, Malakar, he says he's 63 now. So I think Malakar. I bet Steven Leibowitz. We got a crew here is right around my age. So
okay. I wonder who the oldest DFS who's like the oldest regular DFS player.
Regular DFS player, I don't know. At one point, even 2 years ago, there were touts at all of the other sites that were actually older than me. A couple of them would never say their age. I leaned into being your old pal EMac about 8 years ago. So,
well, the other
although
thing
I did say if I ever turned 50 and was still doing this, I wasn't your old OL apostrophe pal. I would be your old pal. So I am now your old pal.
So the other thing too that's kind of by the way, JEW asked really quick, he's just left this in the chat. He wants to know Harden or Trey. I prefer Trey Young. And then he said Trey and LeBron or Harden and Randall at Trey and LeBron. And thoughts on Duren. So just got a bunch of questions came in right away right here. Thoughts on Duren as a Okongwu pivot. If you're looking to get off Okongwu, I'd rather play Naz Reid and Jared Johnson. Not sure if I missed this, but how do I feel about Brunson on DraftKings? Ultimately, somebody who I don't think is bad on a points per dollar basis, but there are so many just better points per dollar plays at this point in time. We had so many good options that opened up.
This is good. We've got a nice group. Alexander Barra says he's 69, always going to be 69. Michael Knack, no relation to my Sharona, 55. We got some. Sotex is 52. Let's see. Guitar Man 24/7 is 48. Draft Cheat, that would be Pete Christensen, 73. His liver is 73. I think he's just turned 40 recently. I think that's where he is. John Monahan, longtime DFS player, he's 60. Devin Davis says there's someone in here that's 90 that's taking everyone's money. Flim Flam Man 52, Ramsey Dillinger 52. Look at this. There we go. Represent, fellow olds unite.
The thing that's kind of funny about this industry is there was a point in time where you really were you were the only person who was doing. I mean, there was some like Dean also who did stuff with it, Roto Grinders. There was people who were, not necessarily like super young, but at the same time too, like this was very much a young man's thing for a long time, and to an extent, it kind of is. But at the reality too is there's people like Laufey, Adam, who've been doing shows for a really long time, and they were in their mid 20s when they started. Now they've been at it for 10 years. So now it's just all of these guys who started doing this in their mid 20s. They're now in their mid 30s. And I kind of think it's going to continue being the case to where it's going to be a lot of us who are just going to be doing content for forever. So there's going to be a point in time where we're just all going to get old together.
Someone asked who else is old? Al Smizzle, Al Seinfeld. I think he's 2 years younger than me. I think he either just turned 50 or will turn 50. Rad Thad, from way back in the day. He is around my age. He's also a doctor. He never said that to a lot of people. I think he did his residency at Johns Hopkins. Very smart dude. Jeff Manns is pretty close to me. A couple other guys at Guru that do their baseball stuff, I think might be older than, or my age or older. So there's a few here. And then of course there's the Eric Carabells, Tristan Cockroft, Matt Berry. Most of them are my age or a little bit older, but they kind of were the stalwarts of leading fantasy content from way back in the day. So hat tip to those guys. And Stefania Bell, she is multi-talented, physical therapist, not doctor, I can't think of the right term, but licensed in a variety of things. She has been around for a long time as well. She's around my age. So there we go. Random says this information is wildly irrelevant. You are absolutely correct, which is why we've got 27 minutes left. We've got four more games to be, in fact, locking at 7:30. We're going to talk a little bit MGM. We're going to talk no house advantage. Let's start off with no house advantage because they have a new format over there, or a relatively new one. This is versus the house. So we were talking about their regular GPP contest. Those were static props. They have the regular player props, which are dynamic. You can check those out. They're going to be in NHL, NBA, NFL. They also have college football. So we've got 4 or 5 bowl games tomorrow. I'm sure they'll post some for there. They're starting to give more and more offerings on that. I am going to drop the page in YouTube chat here where we have revamped the No House Advantage page. There are now 3 tabs when you go to this. There's the versus the house props. Then there is the pick'em props. The pick'ems are when we play against each other, the peer-to-peer games. So those are the static lines. And then there's the optimal lineup. So you can download that as a CSV. We built out about 500 or so lineups that you can use there, taking into account all of the probability of the bets hitting and then ranking these 10 through 1. Earlier today, Terry T. McBee was breaking these down, and we were talking about how, a lot of people are just going to play like the top 50. You can really go through about the top 300-400, and you're only going to lose about 1%, 1.5% of EV to have a unique lineup on your own. So don't stress too much about sticking near the top of those. But looking at the versus the house, so this is live props going up against the spread, or not the spread, against the basically books. I want to say, okay, Boston and Orlando. So we're going to start with this one here. This one's been hanging around the top all day. Franz Wagner, Greg, how do you feel about his 3-pointers? The line is 2.5 on No House Advantage. Again, this is their versus the house. We have a 1.4 projection, 83% win rates on this one. How's that compare across the industry if you have that at your fingertips? I know, and you're so crafty at this stuff. I always impress.
Wait, could you you said the line is 1.5?
2.5. 2.5.
2.5. 2.5
Yes,
is very,
we are
very
projecting
high.
1.4.
Yeah, a 2.5 is extremely high for Franz Wagner. He's playing up against the Boston Celtics, which has actually not been a terrible matchup this year, but that's about to change. Robert Williams is the most valuable defensive player on the Celtics, arguably the best defensive player we have in the NBA right now. And the Celtics were just very difficult to score points against last year and accumulate stats against. Franz Wagner has hit 3 threes in back-to-back games, but he's only averaging 1.4 threes per game. And overall for the year, out of 29 games played, he has been under 2.5 threes in 25 out of those 29. So back-to-back games where he's gone over, but those were outliers. So under 2.5 threes does look like a pretty strong play for NHA there.
All right. Klay Thompson is active tonight. That is key. We do have, I don't think we had the Nets starting lineup. We've got that now. Simmons, Irving, O'Neal, Durant, Claxton. We've got Boston. Al Horford is starting. Smart, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, and Horford. So,
by the way, much more important, the Raptors starting lineup. It is Hernan Gomez is starting, which is what I thought it was before. So I'm happy about that. Van Vliet, Barnes, Siakam, Hernan Gomez, Koloko. So there we go. And Tobias Harris officially ruled out. So we're on the right side of that one. And then two pieces of news we're on the right side of. We're on the right side of Hernan Gomez starting. We're on the right side of Tobias Harris being out. Koloko starting at center. And that definitely makes Thad Young look a little bit less appealing.
Right. I am going to look here. It looks like we will be getting another projection update shortly, which of course means I got to go to late swap now and tweak some stuff. Oh, 3 seconds ago, Greg. We just got that. So 23 minutes until the next wave. We'll talk a little bit more No House Advantage there. The other one I want to do, I'm going to give you a slight thought exercise here as a sports wagerer. Talking about how to use $1,000 risk-free bet. So let me do the read, and you can just ponder the best way for some of our gamers to utilize that. So at BetMGM, if you go into the link below us here, you will get a risk-free bet up to $1,000 and 2 free months of Stokastic Platinum. So the risk-free bet is going to be your first paid wager. If your bet loses, the give back is going to be in site credits. So you get another chance to win your money. I think they break it down in denominations of like $50 or $100 in site bets. I think you have 7 days, if I read the fine print correctly, to then utilize those free bets, but you got a shot to go do $1,000. So this is not for everybody, but that first bet you have is going to be money back up to $1,000. So if you want to do a $10, a $50, $100 first bet, that would be the risk-free portion. It's up to $1,000. What do you see when you do this? You've got your sea legs under you. We saw Maryland just come online, and they're offering all sorts of sign-up bonuses like this. This is different than getting the $200. What do we call it? The no-brainer. How would you approach getting if you had, let's just call it $200? And go up to 1,000, let's just call it 200. How would you approach a $200 risk-free bet?
Can you repeat the question one more time? I'm sorry, EMac.
Yes. What is your best way of using a risk-free bet, one of these large bets? Are you going to try to go for a money line? Are you going for a long shot and then try to win back on money lines if you lose? How would you go that? Or maybe not a long shot, but an aggressive 2-3x payout.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what's tricky, because what I think is optimal to do and what I think is the best way to make money, people might not want to do because people might want to be more risk adverse. But because you're getting a risk-free bet, what you should be doing is you should be taking shots on plus money bets, because you're getting 2 chances at it, right? So you want to do something that's a little bit riskier, because do you want to take a chance on something that's a minus 200, Or do you want to take a chance on, like a plus 200 bet when you know that you're going to get it back if it loses? So what I think you should be doing here is being aggressive and taking, chances and being a little bit riskier because it's a risk-free bet, right? If it loses, you're going to get refunded for it. So you don't really want to play it safe with that, if that makes sense. But I understand that how I would approach that is probably way different than a lot of the people who are watching might want to approach that.
So I'm going to take advantage of one of these, and we got to go up and take my dog up to Maryland to get to the groomer. So I'm going to sign up for, you usually get the bonuses when you sign up in said state for things. You don't have to be residing in those states. You just have to sign up in that state. So I've got a couple earmarked where I can get like $500, $1,000 risk-free bets. My thought would be, if it's similar to the BetMGM, which I'm guessing it is, is to take a little more of a swing like you described. And then if I win, hey, party on me. If I lose, then with those credit bets, that's when I start being like, all right, I'm going to not take sure things, but I'm going to try to get back whatever I feel comfortable losing. So if I bet 1,000, I'd like to get 500 back. Then I'm going to start betting some of the more money lines and some of the favorites with those to try to claw it back. Took my chance, didn't get it, don't want to eat $1,000. Or if you're doing it with 200, you kind of nibble back at trying to get back that extra 100 or so. The other thing you want to remember is you're going to want to know when these expire. If you do it on the right day, you can probably sneak in 2 NFL slates. We also have Saturday football tomorrow. I didn't check ahead for the next week, but you want to just, what is looking ahead of you? You don't wait till the playoffs where there's a dearth of options, right? You want to get it when you got the NBA, you got the NHL, you got the NFL, multiple games. It would be the way I would approach this. So I want to use mine before the playoffs, would be my approach on that. Okay, so that was your BetMGM, 2 free months of Stokastic plus a risk-free first bet up to $1,000. You got to put the money in, right? If you put in 500, you can't risk 1,000. It's just whatever's in your account. But that first bet is going to be risk-free. And then, of course, going in through No House Advantage through our site gets you a $50 deposit match on theirs. Cully has a super chat here, $4.99. Now that we have the Toronto news, Hernan Gomez or Love? I'm going to assume that's
Hernan Gomez. But also it's for like, I was assuming Hernan Gomez was starting before. So anything I said about Hernan Gomez before, it was always under the assumption he was going to be starting. This was how I had projected this team out. So don't think that you have to like double count the Hernan Gomez minutes or something now. I liked him before. And once again, the way I was talking about him before was under the assumption he was starting. I like him a lot as a value play. I like him more than Kevin Love. But also, I think this should have been the expectation all along that he was going to start. At least when Gary Trent was rolled out, not before then.
Okay. And then for those of you that are listening, not looking at the screen or the chat, Ben P in the chat says, hey, EMac, get me up in the Discord. The Maryland may not work exactly how you're thinking. Yeah, I got to I don't know that these are 100%ers. So yeah, I'll definitely chat with you. And you got to read the fine print. But for me, it's a 25-minute drive to get from Virginia to Maryland, just get across the Potomac. So for situations like that, it's just, open your mind. Hey, as I'm traveling through some of these states that are legal, like I had a friend that went to Texas and she was able to take advantage of some of the Texas deposit bonuses, or probably not Texas. She went to Tennessee and was able to take advantage of a few of the bonuses there, even though she resides in Texas. So your mileage may vary, but these are some ways you think about, oh, I want to do that. But what you probably could do, sign up for BetMGM, even if you're not located in a legal state. When you're in a legal state, you still get those 2 months of Stokastic. Thinking ahead, put $10 in, make a $10 wager while you're in one of those other states. Boom, 2 free months of Stokastic. That's a smart way to play it, and I know that works. All right, 17 minutes to go. Greg, have you started rerunning some of your lineups? Any upheaval, any changes here?
There's nothing that I've really had to change post lock. I mean, D'Angelo Russell got ruled out, so that meant I got some more exposure to Anthony Edwards. Jalen Noel was somebody who I didn't have in my player pool that I do now. But other than that, like nothing too crazy. Edwards, Noel, those are the main beneficiaries from D'Angelo Russell being out.
All right. I went a little hog wild on Jalen Noel. I had him in half my lineups. That's, University of Washington. Speaking of University of Washington, I believe Matisse Thybulle will be starting.
Dude, Matisse Thybulle might be the worst offensive player I've ever seen. Matisse Thybulle. Let me go to dunks and
So go
threes.
look at his college numbers. He was not bad in college. He was efficient, relatively efficient. Of course, the 3-point line a little closer there in college.
All right. Thybulle. What would you guess he is his percentile is as an offensive player this year, according to dunks and threes, the EPM stat?
So this would be made shots or attempted shots? Dunks.
No. So percentile is like, so
I got the percentile. But what are we?
So it's like Steph Curry would be a 99th percentile offensive player. Luka Doncic, 99th percentile offensive player. So the best players, 99th percentile. Worst players would be, first percentile. So with that in mind, where do you think Matisse Thybulle ranks percentile wise as an offensive player this year?
11th percentile.
You have vastly overestimated his abilities.
Oh no.
He is third percentile. Last year, he was the worst. Last year, he was absolute worst. So the problem is, number one, he is terribly inefficient. And then point two, he just doesn't do anything else on offense at all. So he just takes shots, by the way, shots that are primarily open looks, and he never makes them. He doesn't add anything on offense.
Worse than Ben Wallace, Ricky Spanglis asks.
Yeah, but Ben Wallace was also not bad. Like, I know people look at him like, oh, look, he doesn't have the world's greatest skill set or post moves or anything like that. But Ben Wallace in his prime compared to Matisse Thybulle and what he's doing now, like, you look at Ben Wallace, also somebody who played, close to the rim. I get that it's just going to be easier for him to be efficient. And but Ben Wallace at the end of his career, they don't have those numbers anymore. I'm sure he must have been abysmal. Like, he was probably a first percentile offensive player towards the tail end of his career. But actually, Ben Wallace's numbers are pretty fucking horrendous. I mean, I don't think he'd be worse than Matisse Thybulle, but yeah, Ben Wallace's offensive numbers and some of the efficiency is outstandingly poor for a big man. So I'll run that back a little bit, but I can't imagine it's worse than what Thybulle's are.
All right, Kwame Brown. No, Kwame Brown. He shouldn't have been drafted as high as he was. Bad situation, dude. GM Michael Jordan broke him down. That was the problem. Klay Thompson starting. That's not a surprise, correct?
Yeah, no. Klay Thompson was questionable, but he did get ruled in a little while ago. By the way, the start to tonight's games. Bogdanovic going ham early. Bogdanovic 8 points in the first 4 minutes of the game. He's up to 10 fantasy points. Good start for LaMelo Ball as well. He is 5 points and a board to open up the game. Trae Young struggling early. 2 points, no other stats. Trae Young. Are we sounding the alarm bells here? Are we starting to panic?
Are we done? Did we lose?
Could be.
All right. My filler arc, one of your favorites, has a 2v2 if you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Poole and Kuminga or Klay and George Yang?
Neither.
You're telling him to rebuild his selection
but
with 2 games locked,
I don't
and this
know
game starting in 12 minutes?
Yeah, but there's no need to play Kuminga or George Niang today. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he's building a showdown lineup and say Poole and Kuminga. If this is not a showdown lineup, my filler arc, don't play George Niang or Jonathan Kuminga tonight.
All right. Teddy Wayman's he's super chatted. Thank you, Teddy. You are a strong supporter of the show. He says Kirilo Fezmenko is the worst offensive player ever. Ooh, he kind of looks offensive. He's 7'1", Ukrainian. Born December 24th, 1986. Yikes. Oh, he's still active. He's in the Dnipro League.
What? Who?
The Greek? No, Ukraine League.
No, I don't even know who this player is that he's talking about.
Oh, it's Teddy Wayman. It's a deep cut. I'm seeing if did he play? There we go. First NBA stint, 38 selection overall in 2007 by the Philadelphia 76ers, traded to the Jazz.
Oh, by the way, one thing I wanted to mention. So anyway, by the way, George Niang is actually in one lineup for me, but certainly not a priority guy.
John P says, what's wrong with Yang? Harris is out. Nothing's wrong with Yang. There's just way better options here. He's going to be fourth offensive option whenever he's on the court. Third, if he's lucky, if it's PJ Tucker and Matisse Thybulle out there. But yeah, no. Wait,
Yeah,
Tucker plays for Philly, doesn't he?
Yeah, PJ Tucker plays for the 76ers.
He's bounced around so many. And I'm like, no, it's the Bucks. No, it's the Heat. No, it's the Suns.
Yeah, so it's so we got the starting lineup for the Sixers, and so there's no Tobias Harris, there's no Furkan Korkmaz, so there is opportunity for Niang to play extended minutes. So I will run this back and say that I don't think he's unplayable, but I just think there's much better value options today.
All right, I'm running a late swaptimizer here to tweak. Somehow I ended up with this. D'Angelo Russell. I don't know why I had him. Jalen Noel, 50% of my lineups. Feels like slightly aggressive, but whatever. Jaden McDaniels and 46%. I'm sorry, 46% of my lineups. How much Jaden McDaniels do you have? That's a bit aggressive, Eric.
McDaniels, 10%.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop him down to 20.
He's a good. There's a lot of good options. There's just a lot of value today.
Did I put randomness on? I'm seeming to be coalescing around a certain core here, which not what I wanted. All right, 9 minutes to go here. I'm just gonna upload whatever I've got here, and we ride. We ride with a ton of Nikola Jokic. I had to put my thumb on the scale to get him. Ooh, how much Kyle Anderson do you want to go to? 50% feels about right. Fields all over him. I like to play in the smaller, less sophisticated fields because I like realistic payout structures, unlike the top-heavy tournaments that are out there. So we've got that. All right. Jason Richardson and Baron Davis were the real Warriors.
Slam dunk champion, Jason Richardson. I mean, that was a really fun team. Remember when they upset the Dallas Mavericks in the playoffs, 8 seed, 1 seed matchup? The Warriors ended up winning. That was the who else was on that team? So there was Jason Richardson, there was Baron Davis, was Monta Ellis on that team as well?
Let's look here. The 8-seeded Warriors stunned the Maverick. Michael Petrus.
Michael Petrie
from France.
Like Eric went there to visit him recently.
Oh, there was a lot of Nelson beat his protege, Dallas coach Avery Johnson. Do you ever hear Avery Johnson talk? He has a voice that's about like this. It's pretty crazy. He played. I think I'm thinking of the right player. He played for. It
sounded like you're doing an Eric impression.
Well, that's possible, but I got to go to a movie premiere tonight. It's going to be great. We're going to see Brad Pitt. Brad's going to be there. We're on a first name basis.
All the Erics on the channel do impressions. That by the way, that makes me excited. I'm doing a show with Spags for the first time in forever. I'm looking forward to Puppet Linguist coming out.
Oh, you do have to ask in advance so he can get him in off the shelf. Because he has him kind of tucked away.
He'll know.
Now I'm YouTubing Avery Johnson clips here. I just want to find one so we can see. There we go. I'm gonna drop that one in chat. His unique voice, a super smart dude. Can't they want to say his dad was like a minister or something?
By the way, we're good. Trae Young just scored 10 fantasy points in a minute and a half. So Trae Young went from very little fantasy points to more than a little very quickly, and Onyeka Okongwu on the board. You just got to rebound and a block.
And exactly none of my currently winnings changed. Apparently, I've matched the field with Trae Young.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are very popular.
All right, let's quickly look here. We got 7 minutes to go. We'll see if there's any breaking news. I'm going to quickly look at some, pull up some DraftKings here, and we can look at some early ownership. Let's go look at the 5. It looks like the 15 is the big one today. So let's download that CSV so we can have some fun. And we will get that going. Again, sponsored today by No House Advantage. They brought you the NBA Deeper Dive and NBA Live Before Lock, including this extra 30 minutes here. Sign up through the link that is in the YouTube description, and you will get a $50 deposit match, up to $50 on your first deposit. Onyeka Okongwu, 60%, 6-0. Bogey, 37%, LaMelo Ball 33, Trae Young only 22.5. Where did you end up on Trae? On DK, were you over 25?
I just closed everything because I figured that we were going to be done in 5 minutes. But he was in more than half my lineups.
I matched the field. 25.2. And of course, no, I said my stuff didn't move. Well, that's why. He's right there. Let's see. De'Aaron Fox was just shy of 10. Jalen McDaniels, not to be confused with Jaden McDaniels, 9. Bojan Bogdanovic, 7.4. Sad that I did not get to make the Eric Lindquist bet of the night, the over on the Bojan Bogdanovic.
Hey,
points.
that's been the big moneymaker for Eric. And
I know, and I've been in Hawaii for 2 weeks, and I can't, when I've got YouTube, or what is this called, Zoom open, I can't, DK doesn't like my geolocator, so I can't make bets.
Yeah, people will, I mean this not as a slight, but just it's the sharpest thing Eric has ever done is he got on Bojan Bogdanovic early, and he's been betting the points prop basically, I don't even want to say blindly because it's not blind. He's had a good read on, he's been projecting him over. But yeah, Eric's made a bunch of money betting the over on Bojan Bogdanovic on basically every single slate that he's played for like.
Yeah, and key right now is Cade Cunningham has been out. He's now out for the season. I believe he's had shin surgery, if I'm remembering the blurb correctly. I think we'll start to see the books tick him up by, instead of being 18.5, we'll probably start seeing 19.5. It's still doable in the right matchups. So I find your spot and take it. And that's what I think Eric does it very well in a lot of these. Sometimes it doesn't work. Hey, Lindy, MVS, best ball. Boo. But you had some great futures on the Cy Young 2 years ago. I'm blanking on the Milwaukee pitcher's name. Corbin Burns. Yeah, you guys find your spots, and then you look for different points to buy it. And these are very good ways to do this. And by the way, tell everybody how they can get a week free of talking sports wagering with you and Lindquist and Shander and others, Ben Raza, Matt Kajeski. It's bowl season.
Yeah, so we have do we even have links for that here? But we do have a betting Discord channel where if you guys want to hang out with us, ask questions and whatnot, you could go over to Stokastic and you could use the promo code GINSIDER, get 1 week for free. If it's something you've been considering signing up for, you would want to sign up now just because we have the price going up at the start of the new year. So if it's been something you're considering, take advantage of it now and sign up before the price goes up. But yeah, if you sign up using the promo code GINSIDER, it's 1 week free access.
All right. They're asking, Spags still alive? What's he up to? Spags is over at the Football Outsiders. I believe he is VP or SVP of their fantasy content and analytics over there. So he's helping oversee a lot of their content, doing a ton of stuff behind the scenes. He's been, he'll be here occasionally on the old NBA streets. He's done some on the contrary stuff for us. And he's even hopped in for a few NFL live before lock. It would not surprise me to see him pop in during the Christmas holiday season, as well, as we've got a lot of people traveling. So you guys will get a chance to see him under our banner, not just as a guest. So he's back for a limited time. We'll see. No end date on it. But Spag's very smart guy. He is someone who revamped entirely how he played DFS and really got into the 20 maxes for NBA for using all the tools. And it's kind of, as we're wrapping up the show here, that's one of the things I wanted to mention here. There's a lot of different ways to win at DFS. There's even more to lose. There's a lot of ways you can lose, but there's a lot of ways you can win. You got to find what feels right for you. Feel where your risk tolerance is, what your risk reward propositions are, etc. Is this an entertainment thing? Do you want to just min cash and get the dopamine hit of seeing currently winnings more than your entry fees? There's a lot of ways to approach this, and we have a nice mix of people that and different ways that they do this. And I know it seems like everybody is a 150 maxer here, but that's just so we can press the edge. Which is getting smaller and smaller, but by playing, I like to play a lot of the sites or a lot of the sports, a lot of the slates over there on DK. DK shutting down the tiers program, at least for some of the things that I like to do. So I will be starting to branch out more towards Yahoo, which I like to play 10 and 20 max entries over there, and then a little bit on FanDuel. But there's a lot of different ways to win, and this is where the Discord really helps. DFS 101 channel. Biggest question we get, and you get it 1,000 times a show if we could, is how do you guys rank and sort your lineups? Me, I do it old school. I just, put my thumb on the scale. I use the up down in Fantasy Cruncher. You can do that on whatever site you want to influence a player's projection percentage. I don't change their actual projection, because if I'm going to keep uploading it for NBA, it'll just override it. So you want to find what allows you to move it up or down without destroying your adjustments. But I like to set a minimum point scored, and then I'm off and running. You would look at Greg, you look at Josh, Adam, Alex, Lindquist. These guys build out hundreds, if not thousands of lineups. Then they use sorting mechanisms. Some of them will do it in Excel. Some of them have it set up in some other methodologies, but you utilize that, and they take into account leverage, ownership, product of ownership, sum of ownership, a bunch of different ways to find out what's unique. And what works in MMA is entirely different than NFL and entirely different than NBA. This is what Stokastic can do for you. The one nice thing I want to point out is one of our super users here, one of our members, J187, has put together a series of YouTube video shorts talking about how to set this stuff up in Excel. So he shares those links with people that are in our Discord, especially the DFS 101 channel, and he has the patience of a saint, answering all sorts of, I thought I was a patient person. He's way more patient than I am. But this is the fun community that we have here at Stokastic. It's a lot of fun. Dip behind the paywall here. There's a bunch of different ways you can try it out for a few days, but there's a lot of utility in getting to not on a show and not trying to answer and talk to a couple thousand people at once. We can get into a little more specifics with you guys. That magic number, anything you want to add on that? I know you work very hard on a lot of the things behind the scenes as well. A lot of our new offerings, not necessarily the products, but the offerings.
I think it's time to eat dinner and get out of here, EMac. I think it's that time. I think your dog's hungry. I think we've got things to attend to.
The consigliere says, EMac, you're done. LOL. It's been a long day. It's like I had reverse jet lag. I should be Hawaii's 5 hours ahead. I came back and it feels like I'm behind. I'm so far behind. I think I'm ahead. With that, gamers.
I don't think I'm the only one in saying this. I feel like I ate too many mushrooms in the last 15 minutes on this show. And if anyone in chat can vouch with me, that would be great to make sure I'm not going crazy. But yeah, you're good, EMac.
Yes.
Let's hit him with the line.
We can definitely do it. For producer Tyler. With that, gamers, good luck.